Bienvenue à cette troisième séance de l'audience publique sur le projet de construction du parc éolien de Grosse-Île. Puisque nous avons reçu des demandes d'obtenir l'information en anglais, nous allons débuter en français et fournir les explications en anglais par la suite. Welcome to this third session of the public hearing on the Grosse-Île Wind Farm project. Since we have received requests for information in English, we will provide information for the different sections in French first, followed by English. D'abord, je souhaite vérifier si le représentant de l'initiateur du projet a déposé des nouveaux documents depuis la dernière séance. I would like to check if the proponent's representative has submitted any new documents since the last meeting. Monsieur Leblanc.
Oui, bonjour Madame Paul, Jean-Michel Leblanc là, pour l'initiateur. Donc, nous avons déposé des documents depuis la dernière séance. Donc, tout d'abord, les documents qui ont été présentés hier soir lors de la séance. Donc, la carte des emplacements des éoliennes, ainsi que la carte des limites de retrait et des marges de sécurité à l'horizon 2050-2060. Nous avons également déposé là, pour répondre à une demande de la Commission des exemples d'installation de pales planches et un schéma technique qui montre la position des pales planches sur nos fondations. Et un complément d'information également qui a été déposé par notre partenaire de l'Alliance de l'Est sur des questions de Jean-Paul Roy sur le montant par RFU. D'ailleurs, si la Commission le souhaite, M. Simon Deschaines pourrait préciser la réponse à cette question.
Oui, s'il vous plaît, on va accueillir M. Deschaines.
Bonjour, Madame la Présidente. Donc, si vous me permettez, je vais en faire la lecture. Je viens tout juste de le recevoir. On a fait le dépôt auprès de vous. Donc, à la question qui nous a été adressée hier soir en lien avec le parc éolien de Grosse-Île par 100 000 de valeur foncière d'une MRC comme Rivière-du-Loup, l'endossement cumulatif des fonds propres par des propriétaires fonciers, les revenus cumulatifs aussi par tranche de 100 000 de valeur foncière d'une MRC comme Rivière-du-Loup. Donc, à cet effet, nous pouvons donner l'information suivante. Le règlement d'emprunt financé sur le long terme de la Régie intermunicipale de l'énergie du Bas-Saint-Laurent, considérant que le citoyen ciblait la MRC de Rivière-du-Loup, est de 6,7 millions, comme présenté dans la capsule sur les retombées économiques plus tôt cette semaine. La part d'actionnariat de la MRC de Rivière-du-Loup au sein de la Régie intermunicipale de l'énergie du Bas-Saint-Laurent est de 11,25 Ainsi, 11,25 de 6,7 millions équivaut à une part du règlement d'emprunt de 753 750 Le remboursement capital et intérêts annuels serait de 66 sous par tranche de 100 000 de richesse foncière uniformisée. La RFU de 2025 de la MRC de Rivière-du-Loup. L'information sur les richesses foncières uniformisées, c'est une donnée qui est publique dans le document déposé à la Commission d'insérer le lien du gouvernement du Québec pour trouver l'information. En terminant, comme présenté dans la capsule des retombées économiques plus tôt cette semaine à la Commission, les distribuables annuels nets qui incluent les distributions du projet après remboursement des règlements d'emprunt, ainsi que la portion des paiements fermes répartis au sein de l'ensemble des membres de l'Alliance anticipée pour le projet parc éolien de Grosse-Île sont de 500 000 pour la Régie intermunicipale de l'énergie du Bas-Saint-Laurent, donc de 15 millions sur la durée du contrat. Au sein de la Régie intermunicipale du Bas-Saint-Laurent, malgré un actionnariat de 11,25 par chacune des MRC, ont convenu de récupérer 10 des distributions et de remettre chacune 1,25 au collectif régional de développement du Bas-Saint-Laurent pour permettre la mise en place d'un fonds de développement régional. Ainsi, la MRC de Rivière-du-Loup, avec 10 des distributions, recevrait annuellement 50 000 en distribution nette provenant du projet parc éolien de Grosse-Île pour un total de 1,5 million sur 30 ans. Toutefois, il appartient à chaque MRC de convenir de la façon dont elle distribuera les distributions encaissées de la Régie intermunicipale du Bas-Saint-Laurent. Nous ne pouvons donc pas présumer de la répartition des distributions par 100 000 de RFU.
we cannot
voilà, Madame
presume
la Présidente.
the repartition, of
Merci
course,
beaucoup.
of the
Monsieur Leblanc,
distribution of
est-ce qu'il y a autre chose?
$100,000. So, thank you very much.
Non.
Mr. Leblanc, do you see
Vous
something
ne deviez
else?
pas nous fournir des photos de pales planches?
En fait, oui, c'est dans les documents
you provide pictures of,
qu'on a déposés. On a fait une capsule avec à la fois les photos
pales
et
planches?
un schéma.
So we have the
D'accord. Et il y
schematic and
avait
we have
aussi,
maybe some
me semble, on
video
avait
and some
discuté de
pictures as well.
l'utilisation du système anti-brouillard, si
So
je peux
we
appeler ça
actually
comme ça. Est-ce que
discussed
c'est aussi
the
dans les
use
documents?
of the NT.
Ce n'est pas dans les documents. Par contre, nous avons demandé à
It's not in
notre
the document.
mandataire, mandaté en fait,
It's in the fog lamps,
pour
actually
l'étude
the
d'impact,
fog
faire une
system.
recherche là, de revue de
So
littérature.
we amended it
Donc, si vous
actually
souhaitez, Madame
impact
Castonguay
study
peut
research, and we reviewed the
expliquer
literature.
les
So if you
résultats de
wish,
cette
Madame
recherche.
Castonguay
D'accord,
can explain
allez-y,
the
Madame
results of this
Castonguay.
research. So go ahead, Madame
Oui,
Castonguay,
bonjour tout le
please.
monde. Marjolaine
Hi
Castonguay de
everyone.
Pesca
I
Environnement.
have Marjolaine
La
Castonguay
mesure
of Pesca
qui
Environnement.
concerne
The measure
l'instrument qui va détecter le brouillard ou la faible
and the instrument
visibilité,
that will
c'est
detect
un
the
instrument
fog
qui est
or
utilisé
low
assez fin,
visibility
qui
is
peut
a
être installé
really
sur les éoliens.
fine
En
instrument
ajoutant cet
that could be
instrument sur
installed
les
on
éoliennes,
the
il est
wind
possible de
turbine,
pouvoir
and by
détecter le
added this
brouillard
instrument
et
on
de
the
déterminer
wind
une
turbine, it is
distance
possible to detect the
sécuritaire
fog
pour
and define a
permettre une
safe
programmation de
distance
mettre
to
les
allow
pales en
a
mise en
programmation to
drapeau
put
pour faire en
the
sorte de diminuer le risque de collision pour la période de brouillard. La distance qui a été recommandée est de 200 mètres pour permettre l'arrêt des éoliennes sur une distance. Lorsque le brouillard serait à 200 mètres et moins, les pales seraient mises en drapeau pour limiter le risque de collision.
D'accord, merci beaucoup. Ensuite, on va aller voir s'il y a des personnes ressources qui ont déposé des documents ou qui souhaitent en déposer.
After that, if there's a resource person
Bon,
that deposits some
alors,
documents, I
on
would
a,
actually
semble-t-il, un
wish them to
problème de
deposit it. So we
traduction.
have a
Je
problem of
pense qu'on va
translation.
prendre une pause
Maybe
pour
we're going to
régler le
take a
problème parce
problem
que
to
hier soir, on a eu exactement le
rule
même
the problem.
problème en
So we had
début de
exactly the same
séance
problem at the
et
beginning
ça
of
va
the
obliger
session,
des
and
réponses
that's
d'être
going
répétées. On ne fera pas le même
to
scénario. Là.
obligate
Alors, la
actually
commission
the
va
answers
prendre
to
une
be
pause
repeated. So the
jusqu'à
commission
ce
is
que
going to
ce
take a
soit
break
réglé.
until the problem is fixed. So you're confirming that everything is going well?
Alors, on reprend. Monsieur Leblanc, comme on
We're going back. Mr. Leblanc, since we had some translation problems, I would ask you maybe to allow Mr. Deschênes to reread his answer, and then Madame Castonguay to re-give the information given on the fog disposal.
Donc, bonjour, Madame la Présidente. Merci. Suite à la question reçue que nous avons pris en délibéré, on a souhaité...
We wish to answer, or try to answer very well this question. The document was provided to me just not long ago. So allow me to read it. So to the question from last night from a citizen mentioning that the alliance can provide for the wind part of Grosse-Île by 100,000 of land value, as same as Rivière-du-Loup, the cumulative of the funds from the land values, cumulative by number of $100,000 per value. So we have to give some information, the following information. The regulation, the borrowing regulation for the Bas-Saint-Laurent, considering that the citizen was focusing on the Rivière-du-Loup, is 6.7 million. So the regulation for borrowing 6.7 million is the same from the economic benefits which was deposited this week. The shareholders part from Rivière-du-Loup for the Régie intermunicipale de Bas-Saint-Laurent is 11.25%. That 11.25%. 11.5% of 6.7 million, which is a share of borrowing. I'm sorry, I missed that. The refund of the capital, annual refund is 0.66 cents per part of. I'm sorry, but you missed that. You got this. So the question that was asked yesterday, 66 cents per part of 100,000. So it's a data which is public. We insert in that document which we presented today to you with the link to search those data. As presented in the video for the benefits, economic benefits presented this week, the net distribution is included distribution of the project after refunding of the borrowing regulation, and also firm payment to all the members of the alliance for the park, the wind farm of Grosse-Île. I missed that figure. 15 million for the duration of the contract for the Régie intermunicipale Bas-Saint-Laurent, despite a shareholder on 11.25% by MERS. Those concluded that 10% of distribution would give 1.35% to the regional cumulative of the Bas-Saint-Laurent to allow the implementation, development of a fund, a regional fund. So in such 10% of the distribution after the refund of the borrowing regulation, $100,000 in that distribution coming from the wind farm of Grosse-Île for a total of 1.5 million over 30 years. Nevertheless, it's up to each merchant that how they can distribute all the money for the Bas-Saint-Laurent. So we cannot suppose that the distribution of by 100,000 of the land value. Thank you. Madame Castonguay would say, maybe say what you take over what you said earlier. Thank you. Madame Castonguay, the device to detect the fog is a specific equipment that's created for this, and which can be installed on the wind turbine. Which allow the feathering of the blades during the selected condition. The distance of protection is established at 200 meters to allow, which will determine the presence of fog to limit all the collision with the birds. This measure has been established for the horn grape. So now let's talk to the resource people. Resource people.
Or wish to submit them. On va commencer par Madame Leclerc.
I'm going to start by Madame Leclerc. Hello. There's no document deposited, but I have to specify something regarding the blades, which can contain some. So the study, impact study, we try to respect all the regulation regarding the wind farms. So the federal government, there's a regulation that prevent any use of throughout Canada. So it's very important. So there a project which use with this impact studies we can add to that list that contain asbestos. So thank you. I'm sorry. Now let's go to Minister of Public Safety, Monsieur Caron. Safety. On entend mal. I communicate those criteria. We cannot hear you sound.
On a un problème de connexion avec vous. Votre image fige, on n'entend pas bien votre discours. Je vais permettre à la régie de régler ça, de refaire des tests, et je vais aller tout de suite auprès de M. Richard de la communauté.
I'm going to talk to Mr. Richard from the maritime community. Mr. Richard passed the word to Mr. Hubert regarding the establishing of the profit distribution for the land value. This is something which was not interpreted, so I would ask Mr. Hubert to come back to it, to start again the answer that was given. Hello, Jean Hubert, General Director, but Interim Director General.
Non.
C'est correct, c'est une blague. Donc, en répétition.
So, to repeat from yesterday, the distribution of the monies that would receive from wind project, not only the project of the Magdalen Island, but also on the territory of the Alliance Alias, are the following one. The revenues from energy sales are based on the LFU, the land value wealth, which is calculated at the municipal level, which is well distributed, very well used for the way to for land value taxation. So here at the island, 2 members of the community, of the maritime community, the municipality of the island, $2 billion, which is the land value, to all the values and the building on the territory. And Grosse-Île is a value of about 66 million. It's about, for Grosse-Île, 3% of the total plate, and for the municipality of the island, 97%. If we round up the number in dollars, annually, the municipality of the island receives $660, which is about 7%. Grosse-Île receives $20,000, which represent 3%, as we said earlier. If we add to that, there's the land rental. We have public land here at the Magdalen Island. The municipality receives around $36,000, which put into the public funds, which is reserved for activities which are managed by community, which present recommendation. And the third block of revenue comes from the firm payments. It's a term that we have heard a lot already at the Commission, $65,000, which come annually to the municipality of the islands. Est-ce que vous voulez que je traduise?
Monsieur Scully, maintenant, c'est votre...
Monsieur Scully, now it's your turn. Then we'll try to come back to Monsieur Caron. Mr. Scully, yesterday we had a question from a citizen regarding the business model from Quebec, which in certain case implies a private partnership. So here's the question. In the wind project in partnership in public with the one we have today, and for which Quebec have negotiated a contract of from agreement from Alliance Alias and Trinage Hubert, which mechanism or strategies that Quebec put into place to guarantee the protection of of all the gains for the electricity powers. Hydro-Québec. First, I would like to clarify the project we have, which is, it's not a public and private partnership, it's about electricity, which we conclude from both parties, from Quebec, Guadeloupe, which is everything was approved by the Régie of l'Énergie. In terms of protection of the wind assets, the promoter must maintain some guarantees during the duration of the contract, and also some insurance liabilities which cover everything, as well as if in case there were some events. So on that, those are guarantees that protects all the assets, and also comes to protect Hydro-Québec in case of emergency situation. In terms of stability of the power stability, the contract for electricity are deposited to the Régie in terms of Quebec at each moment. We do a follow-up of the energy. So that's where we can ensure the stability of the rates, which applies to all throughout the province of Quebec. So the Projet also will have a way to reduce the cost, the network at the Îles-de-la-Madeleine, with a lower amount. So on this point, Madam Chair, if you allow me, I will answer the second question concerning the costs associated with the power plant. So to complement that, always based on the information that is available to the public at the Régie de l'Énergie, the cost associated to the power energy, which is 27 cents per kilowatt hour, compared to a rate of domestic rate, which is applied in the Hydro-Quebec rates for 2025. We are revising those rates, is 6.9 cents per kilowatt hour per hour. And also, I'd like to bring a last point, if I can. Thank you. I'd like to clarify some elements we could communicate last night during the session. The cost of the future power plant, thermal plant, is not known since the phase of the concept design is not officially done. So this will start around fall 2026 after selection of the motorists for the power plant, which will work collaboratively with Hydro-Quebec. At this stage, it's a cost of several millions of dollars. $100 million, but in the framework which allow to specify it. The engineering work are ongoing, and then when they'll be sufficiently established. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Caron. Now we'll try again the conversation. Is it better? Yes. Yes, it's better. We can see and we can hear you. Excellent. No. Maybe you should shut your camera. Maybe I could try to shut it. No, try it again. Yes, we can hear you. To complement the information, okay, that will in turn to create priority for the CPS project. A few minutes ago, the answer that I've got from my colleagues, if you want me to do the reading of them, can you summarize it? With question about the selection criteria. Yes, of the selection criteria, but I can read them to you. So the Ministry of Public Safety developed a tool to decide sectors that are potentially at risk in terms of erosion, coastal erosion and submersion. In terms of intervention, the MSP used a precision index, which takes into account 8 per year with exposition for the different coastal hazards. Yeah, I know. So first criteria, the exposition to erosion, the potential of exposition. Second criteria, exposition to erosion, the dangers, process of erosion. And third criteria, the exposition to some coastal submersion, the effect of water in the future. deferred expulsion to extermination and the danger extermination process. And 5th, the type of use of building. 6, the number of people that sleep in the building. 7, the type of the roads and the length of the detour if there was a breaking of the access. So those are criteria that take into account after we look at the project, the CPS, which are presented to the Ministry for the Financing. Thank you, Mr. Caron. Now we'll go to the resistance is open to ask your question in the room. You can also register at the greeting table at the beginning, at the entrance. For people at the distance, please by filling out the form which says in the website of the BAP or by phoning 1-800-463-4732, phone 6. L'inscription.
Questions. If you are attending in person, you can register at the reception desk at the entrance of the room. If you are participating remotely, you can register by filling out the form on the BAP website or by calling 1-800-463-4732 extension 6. Les personnes intéressées à exprimer leur opinion sur le projet à
l'occasion. Their opinions on the project on the second part of the public hearing can register on the website of the BAP, then the tab which is for Wind Park of Grosse-Île, the way to participate. You can also address to the table at the entrance of the room or write to the address grosse-île@qc.ca. Ceux qui veulent exprimer leur opinion sur le
of the public hearing can register on the BAP website. If you have any questions about how to participate, you can ask at the table at the entrance to the room or write to grosse-île@bap.gouv.qc.ca. Je tiens à vous rappeler les règles de procédure en audience publique. D'abord, c'est à moi.
The rules for public hearing is to me, Madame Lenny. All the questions and answers will be addressed. Then I would like to ask you to avoid preambles or your questions. You will have the time, you have the right to 2 questions per intervention. So, this being said, you can write for a new intervention as long as the register will be open. At the end, I would like to remind you that we will not tolerate manifestation, derogatory comments or any bad comments. So I would like to remind you that j'aimerais vous rappeler que
all questions and answers are going to be addressed to me or Mrs. Lenny. Second, I ask that you avoid preambles. You can ask 2 questions per intervention. You may sign up again for future interventions as long as the register is open. Finally, I would like to remind you that we do not tolerate demonstrations, derogatory remarks, defamatory comments, or contemptuous attitudes. La commission va recommencer sa séance.
Okay, we'll start its session by starting with a few quick questions to start the discussion while waiting that we have other registrations. There is the first question, a commission regarding the use of the installation of the harbor installation. You'll have big equipment to enter at the Îles-de-la-Madeleine, Magdalene. Do you maybe have the experience for that of the north? Has the harbor, the port, has the capacity to transport or to stock provisionally the equipment of big size, like for example the tower or the blades? Yes, based on our experience, yes, we have the capacity to do so. Monsieur for the Maritime Committee, but I know that you live not far away from it. Do we notice that there were possible work, the construction of the
So, do you think eventually, because we don't have an idea of the timetable of those works, do you think eventually those work could interfere or reduce the capacity of stocking, of transshipping, to your knowledge, to the best of your knowledge? Mr. Jean Hubert could answer. I would invite him to actually come to the mic. Mr. Hubert. Hi, Madam Chair. Jean Hubert Interim General Director for the municipality of Magdalene Island. So in the port sector of Cap-Haut-Meul, there will be work on 3 years. It's in a sector that should start in 2027 normally with Transport Canada, which is the federal level, and the work shouldn't prevent any landing or transport or merchandise or passengers. If there's an installation eventually of wind turbine, the transport of equipment of the parts of the windmill will actually be okay. We actually lived many years at the installation of the park of Junjunor, and we did adapt to it. On the level of the places where we can actually allow it, we had adaptation brought along all the road line to allow the safe transport of equipment and piece of the windmill. And at the time, I presume, not knowing all the details, of course, but I think it's going to be the same thing in the case of this project. Thank you very much. And for the transport at the port on the eventual site of construction, do you anticipate difficulties eventually, especially during the touristic period? During the construction of Junor, did you have the maybe component of transported interfered with the road traffic? So, Madam Chair, this road network that will be taken by the wind turbine parts, it will be under the jurisdiction of Transport Québec. What I can share you as my experience is all measures were taken beforehand for communication for the population. And as you know, it's going to be spectacular at Magdalene Island. So yes, population is curious, but also respectuous of is going to be respecting traffic. So to mitigate and limit maybe the circulation participation, to my knowledge, I think everything went really well. So that's perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Sauvageau. On the side of Minister de Transport, of the equipment of Junjunor, did you have an agreement with the initiator pertaining to eventual breakage? The road is actually under your responsibility. So do you know if it's the same thing with this project? Actually, I'm going to leave my colleague Simon Roy to is actually our spokesperson to actually answer the questions. So thank you very much. Hi, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm actually going on the same sense as the preceding interveners. So pertaining to how everything is going to take place, we have the expertise on the deployment of what happened in the fall of 2020 in the north. So everything went really well. So all the parts and the placement of different mechanism went well. We didn't have any particular challenges. We were outside of the touristic period, so that would actually favor the transport as well. On the other hand, we had comments to the effect that there were major challenges that maybe we didn't took into account. So, but everything went well to enter the integration pertaining to maybe some eventual breakages that are noticed because of the repeated movement of a vehicle. That will be the transporter that will be responsible for the taking care of the infrastructure for the transport department. So thank you very much. So concerning the 199 road, and the initiator presented in the document a possibility to, of course, if it's installed on the 6 and 7 site, to tie them to the post by a road that's actually buried right now, just at the end of Road 199. So how does the Ministry of Transport would actually manage the operation of that road by another user? Yes, that's well funded. We should have placed cables, and there's a process to the emission that would allow public utility from external people to actually do so. There's installation inside of our premises, and we have a document that is produced, a recommendation of use, and eventually that could be written inside of that document, and we are accompanying the promoter or contractor that will do the work to define how it should be implemented. So we're talking about different documents, especially engineering documents, to make sure that it's going to be well done and is going to be in line with our mission to conserve those work throughout the installation, and that could actually periodize the installation of the equipment. So I imagine that if we're projecting a little further in the future, I imagine those documents, you have an agreement. We can actually prevail some clauses. Yes, if we need to make excavation work, for example, we have some equipment that are going to be buried, and they will be. We actually want to know where they are buried, of course, and we can intervene then. And of course, we need to know their positioning, the depth, and precisely. And generally, it's going to be well communicated inside in the documents. So thank you very much, Mr. Roy. I'm going to actually maybe ask Madame Labbé to speak. So the next question is going to be towards the initiator concerning the cost of the project. In your document and the presentation that you have of the project, you estimated a cost of $80 million. This cost is corresponding, if we understand well, to a realization of a project that could allow the beginning of electricity providing to Hydro-Québec. So we are at the end, we are in 2026, and with the timetable you demonstrated, and in the same presentation, we understand that the project wouldn't be starting before the end of 2028. It's not going to be 2025, that's for sure. Did a new estimate of cost, especially we noticed that all construction cost of greater project really increased a lot these last few years. Do you have a new assessment of cost? No, we didn't re-evaluate the cost, the final cost that could actually be shared today. Do you have the intention to reassess the cost and to share that information in the frame of this process? We are negotiating with different manufacturer of a wind turbine, and that's an important part of the project. And if this, when this negotiation will be closed, we won't be doing any reactualization of the cost until that's actually negotiated. Thank you very much. So if we stay in the monetary questions, I'm going to address myself to the Magdalene Maritime community. So you explain, of course, dividends, revenue that you're going to receive, and following up the installation of the windmill parks and how you're going to redistribute the funds. Mr. Hubert, when you established this cost repartition partition or benefits, did you think about other method of repartition or of distribution of the benefits? And by the same occasion, if you could answer, is there another distribution method that other communities of the MRC would use? To our knowledge, the MRC of Gaspésie is using this method. And for the moment, we didn't take into account different method of sharing benefits. So you understand that you didn't analyze another type or other ones. Perfect. We understand that. Thank you. So now the question is going to be addressed to you, Mr. Richard. In the whole of the amounts you're going to receive following the installation of the windmill park and your participation to the Régie, we're talking about documents of an amount of 7,600 in 2022. Can you tell us what are you using those funds for that you're receiving? And can you give us maybe some examples? That would be interesting. Yeah, I would invite my colleague Jean Hubert. He will be able to give you a few examples. So, hi, Madame la Commissaire. So, hi, Madame Chair, Jean Hubert, General Director by interim to the Municipality of Magdalene Island. So, we are receiving since 2018 windmill revenues from the entirety of the parks of the Gaspésie region, so including the Bas-Saint-Laurent. So these funds are actually a breath of fresh air for the municipality, and also for the Grosse-Île municipality as well. So we endorsed many loan ruling that we cautioned for massive investments. So that's a new file for us, this windmill energy, and the elected consented to invest in different projects. When we receive the repartition or the distribution, and everything is coming from the energy régie and la Gaspésie. So the numbers that we're receiving for Grosse-Île, we're just sending a check to the municipality of Grosse-Île. And we are engaging by resolution towards the municipal council. And last Tuesday, we actually engaged for 10 years on $50,000 of windmill revenue on infrastructure project. And in the past, we have a Center for Public Services that deserves all Magdalene Island, and we did it for multi-sport of gardens. The center, we have an infrastructure for all the Magdalene Island, and we have the regional projects. All those investments are done by equity funds from the Magdalene Island municipality. And you have projects on which the municipality invested in that actually benefits the maritime community. So the two municipalities. So we didn't ask for anything we didn't ask for more funds at Grosse-Île. So since those years, we're talking about 760,000, but a few years ago, it was around 660,000. So we were promised a few years ago to actually have $1 million, and we don't have it yet. We are wishing to have it since until 2030. And beyond that, it's actually very interesting for the municipality, for our citizen, whether they are at Grosse-Île or not, or the rest of the Magdalene Island. We invested in the regions. So those are the types of investments on which the municipal council consented by resolution to invest in. Thank you very much. Maybe a small precision in the entirety of the example that you gave us. Is there funds that is in a public land fund? Yes, what I described actually, those investments, they are strictly revenue from electricity sales that are distributed by the régie. So we are receiving, as I mentioned earlier on, renting revenue, because we have a convention of managing the entirety of the public land. So those are the renting that are used here as in a management fund of public land that is managed by a committee that recommends intervention and investment to the council, the municipal council. So it's around $36,000, which actually comes from those renting lease, and they are around the Dunes du Nord, which are public land. And after that, we have other renting lease private. So right now, I'm going to have a first citizen intervention. I'm going to call on the mic Madame Lucie Damour. Good morning, Madame Chair, Madame Commissaire. So good morning, Madame Damon. It's really touching me deeply to see this installation when MAP is coming to meet us. And the BAP time needs to be maximized locally. So that's in the sense that my first question is going to be, that you're going to find my first question. So I'm listening to you religiously for 2 days now, and I think I had a lot of answer to my questions. And again, I think with Madame Lemay, we are doing a telepathy because you're taking my questions at the beginning of audience at the hearing. So you have really great observations. Thank you. I will have the courage to ask my first questions. And it's gonna go in the sense of maximize the time of those invested resources here in our community for a project for which we need to reflect upon. Locally first, because there are impacts, of course, with all organizations around the Alliance of les Régies Intermunicipales. All the information, I think, can be found easily on website or another level. And I was asking myself if the commission and BAP, and maybe you're going to tell me to go higher up, I will, but before that, did you ever think are questions that are not in our domain, the questions that are more general, global? Is there a way to have another channel? Always in the objective to maximize the time or to limit this type of intervention. Did you ever think about that? Of course, in all types of projects, it's not particular to the windmill. We have two levels of participation. We have the local participation that is interested and often enough emotional pertaining to a project, and they are really against, and they are asking questions very tied to the project. And we have participants that are not necessarily from the region, but they are searching answers for a more global vision. So, as you said, we are maybe at a level which is less attached to the studied project, but more here, which is the windmill domain in general, or how is the development is being made, how the sites are chosen, who is investing, how are the profits shared. So from one part, we have a legal frame when we have a demand towards the Minister of Environment. There's an assessment done on the nature of the demand when it is tied to the project. The hearing is accepted. Those people can participate and ask their questions, which is at a higher level. Those people are searching for a more general conversation that could be difficult to take place in a commission of BAP, which is which the axis is on the project, the focus is on the project. But when we're doing this part of the road on these people, we are trying to reflect everything we heard. And like your questions or Madame Chevrier, which is really tied closely with the project, they are reported. So we do not discriminate. This is participative democracy. That's what it is. And sometimes it could appear for people on locally a little bit invasive, but it's normal. Everyone can participate, even if their affirmation is not necessarily tied directly to the project here today. So we are seeing it actually, because it's not the first time that we have a BAP, and at a place or not, it's gonna maybe prevent the communities to express themselves because they are gonna have that fear. We're gonna try to not prevent the community to express themselves. So we're gonna trust you. So my second question, I'm gonna like to have the map where you can see the sites with the 5 windmills and the other 2 wind turbines. Is it possible? No, it's possible. We are actually projecting it on the screen. Could you see it? It won't be too long. And actually, I took my retirement, but I was a biologist and I was teaching here at the campus of the island, at Cégep, and I worked on small projects of research, and I continue with specialists that are external to the Magdalene Island, and that I'm sending specimen of diverse nature of our environment. And on the site, we have many wind turbines, and we had an impact study, and we had a study on the lagoon site, and we reduced it to maybe 2 and maybe to 0, and we'll see what is going to be the end result. You saw all the comments, and it was 2 different sites with ecology maturity, which are really different. And on the site which is closest to the lagoon, you have a biodiversity which is exceptional, especially insects. And I know the directives for the windmill projects are done, especially the one that is more forest-based or but here at the island, it's so different. We see the constraint that it's causing. So I would ask if I go on that terrain for a butterfly, actually endemic, which is really present. It's there's a crickets, there's a there's a lot of ponds of fresh water, and it's rare in the island. And there's not necessarily, and there's going to be a number of insects.
The studies which was done, but everything else. So I was wondering if it's possible to get an outlook on some categories of insect which are such as which could be present, which are in those environment. First, we're going to go to the Ministry of Environment Ministry, because you requested the guidelines. Madame Leclerc, so right now in the guideline, is there any requirements, specific requirements, because we talk about insect species with certain status? Did your experts on your side make any comments regarding insects that would benefit a protection status, which could be found around the wind farm, the wind turbines? No, the guideline does not mention of the inventory on insects, and the expert did not underline the issues. So I look, Madame Bernier, but Madame Leclerc, is there really some particular species or insect that are designated which had a protection status? Would have to verify. I would appreciate. So, Mrs., you have quite a battle to fight in front of you. So maybe you can ask Mr. Leblanc, if this project is authorized, there's also a follow-up program which to be made. So Mr. Leblanc brings wind turbine in those regions, which is always possible. As we understood, for some certain species of insect, would you be able to verify the persistence, the existence? I know it's a bit exceptional. Well, but hello, Madame Paul. To answer to the question of Madame Namour, we will wait to verify for the MRCC regarding the presence of insects, possibly those who have a certain status. We follow that recommendation. However, as Madame Namour has mentioned, without having done any specific of some insects that are in some areas which are more favorable insects, we named the wetlands, which is something which has been invented, an inventory was made. So to avoid the projects, if you wish, I could ask Madame Castonguay, who could present them. Go ahead, Madame Castonguay. Hello, Mr. Environment. In the preparation of the wind farm design, there's a specific exercise which was done to install the infrastructure outside of the wetlands. So right now, there's a overlapping of 0.2 hectares in the wetlands, but it's a type of stepping that for during engineering, during the configuration, which we can identify and try to avoid completely. Also, the requests, the demands, okay, which were formulated by the guidelines, it's really to avoid the Conrad's Robbery, which was the variance of the 7 wind turbine, which are always in the process of the initiator. It's always in the process to improve, to optimize, to present a project with 4 wind turbines, with 3 reserve locations, so you can see the efforts to avoid the broom crowberry. So in regards to insect, we recognize that the Magdalene Island is an environment which is unique. We will try to see the recommendation from the Ministry of the Environment Ministry to see what should be done. Madame Leclerc, I'll come back to you. Yesterday, your colleague brought some specification regarding the law on the endangered species. Since the modification, there's a new, not a new, a new caveat. There's no status, but it's not the right term, but it's threatened or susceptible to be affected. So is this new specification in the law will influence how we're going to determine the location of these wind turbines in this area? 6-7. It's regard the broom crowberry, but if you find some species of insect with certain status, I would ask Daniel Gauthier of the fauna management. Madame Gauthier? Yes, hello. So Daniel Gauthier, responsible of biodiversity for the region of Gaspésie and Magdalene Island. So to answer the question regarding insects, we know, based on our data, there's a species that's considered quite noticeable located in Magdalene Island. However, the ministry, unfortunately, those insects start just beginning to be valued. Madame Gauthier, maybe you should shut your camera, please, because right now the sound is start to be to cut. Now, you can continue. So we are just beginning to develop some protocols, to follow up protocols, and look at the population of insects. We have some very limited knowledge about the insects. However, we know that effectively there are the crickets of the Magdalene Island is kind of a status which has a status which is kind of to notice in the Magdalene Island. So Madame Gauthier can also talk to regarding the second part of my question. Does the new guidelines, okay, in the law comes to restrict the installation of the wind turbines regarding the broom crowberries? According to me, the article was mentioned, Article 16, we talked about yesterday, specifically for the floristic species. So it's very limited. So thank you. Madame Damour, we'll go to a second question because the time is going fast. Regarding to that, the broom crowberries of Conrad, we mentioned that the seed that the ants. So insects are very important for that kind of species. So I was really happy to hear that we talk about transplantation. It's not a small plant, but it's an environment. It's ecological value when the broom crowberry is there. So I really like the presentation, Mr. Hubert, regarding the distribution the funds or the monies for the environment. So it's really it's quite interesting, everything that comes back through because of this wind energy. So do you know if that's would exist part of these monies that can be used to have a follow-up on the ecological process, for which is more difficult to have monies and which are very important for our environment. Maybe the ministry already has some research in this sense, but the relation between some insects and the plants and birds, which also are looking for those insects in those environments. So is there are there any monies which would allow us to follow the environment? Monsieur Richard, do you have... We come back finally to the distribution of the monies, of the use of the funds that you make here at the Madeleine Islands, the revenues from the wind production. Do you know if there's any possibilities of financing that type of research? As I understood from Mr. Hubert, that we're more into the installations, community installation, collectivity installation. Is there any segments in which will be focused on wildlife, flora? Yeah, je dis l'aménagement, communauté maritime. Up to now, we didn't stop there. Is it a possibility? I cannot say anything right now because we'll have to discuss internally. Maybe yes, maybe no. Yeah, it's not necessarily topics which are presented by the community, local community, or the maritime community. However, it's a new kind of information which will bring us to reflect. We could look internally, and then when in terms of financing all the project or the programs, sometimes the program, there's a framework, a legal framework that we have, which is well defined. Based on my experience, I do not know any program which is offered to municipality, the maritime community, which will talk about that subject. But we can look internally, and the idea seems to me quite interesting. Merci, Monsieur Charles. Thank you, Madame Demour. Enjoy the rest of the presentation. Monsieur Chevrier. Madame Chevrier, I would ask you to go directly to your question, because afterward I would like to come back on the erosion. And since that your expert at 3:30 won't be available, so I would ask the question right away on the erosion while he's right here. Go ahead, Mrs. Chevrier. Hello. So you say bonsoir. Good evening. Just to local participation and non-local, I would like to make you notice that we talk about cost of the underwater cable to supply, to reduce our...
C'est trop cher parce que c'est le
It's too expensive because the Quebecers, Quebec, which will assume those monies. But we talk about the GSG at the Madeleine Islands. I think that the Quebec, we can feel a bit guilty, but this could be part of your brief. Of course, there will be room for that. I would like maybe how the responsibilities are shared in case of public land, the maritime community or municipality, but I think it's the maritime community with the management. But the Ministry of the Natural Resources, what is its role in that aspect? Because right now there's an important use of the public land for the wind turbines, etc. Mr. Richard? First is here at the island. When Madame Chevrier mentioned EOLien is, which is used in Quebec, the management of public land. Is it the same case here at the Madeleine Islands? Then Richard, chief urbanist. So for many years, we have assigned a maritime community and not the municipality of the islands, but the maritime community with territorial management. So the responsibility comes back to the maritime community. For the moment, we have to observe the modalities of the conventions. And right now we apply generally the rules which are established by the government, the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Forest. We explore over the last few years. We talk about the media. We try to put into place a regional park to have some sort of governing of our public land. A lot of reprisal, contestation, we took a bit of retreat and we started to consultate, public consultation, and we continued regarding consultation last fall to see what are the possibilities of what we can do, the governing models, what are the issues on the territory, issues that are the conflict of usage, environment protection, of our public land are greatly occupied for recreation, hunting, fishing, and other activities. However, now, depending on in which we're going to propose different scenarios based on the result of the consultation. We propose some scenario in the near future to the agglomeration council. We have a committee, also the advisory committee for the public, which that we meet 2 or 3 times a year. We talk about all these kinds of scenarios, and then based on the model that will be chosen, we'll be better positioned to in the future to who will have this responsibility to the protection of the territory, whether it's to implement some infrastructure and public land, etc. But for the moment, we look after delivering those some retreat areas, or based on the criteria for the Quebec government. So we did not adopt a particular regulation specified specifically for the islands to remove or just manage piece by piece. So we follow all the modalities of the government. Madame Chevrier, with your second questions, we'll go with the second. I would need some more specific precision. My second question is, we said and repeated that there were no other location in the archipelago on the islands. Just to highlight, I don't know if I have to present that right away, but in the order of the other projects, there were 2 things which were presented, and I will give you the documents, which are there's a student from Sherbrooke who did multiple analysis on the territory to see which correspond the most. This work has not been used in that case, in this one. And also there was, during this period, another proposition of wind turbine development, which was not taken into account at that moment, not in this one. So there are things which are the question of to have wind turbines offshore, not too or near. So those are references. I can send them to Madame. So I'm just going to send you the link, and then we're going to look into that. Thank you very much. Monsieur Leblanc, we're going to come back to erosion and submersion, if you don't mind.
I'm sorry for the paper sound. In the impact studies, you indicate in the resume as well, there's an update of the models of erosion and flooding hazard of the project, integrating maybe a possible breach of Road 199 that should be performed. So if I put between parentheses here, reasonable parameters to define with the Ministry of the Environment. What is the model completed? And if not, when can we expect it? No, the model is not completed yet. We are in discussion to define reasonable parameters. So to perform it, as soon as those parameters will be defined with the ministry, we can actually that. So did you start the discussion with the ministry? So yes, we did. They have to start. They haven't started yet. So the ministry asked us to meet and indicated to make a proposition of reasonable parameters, and that's the step where we are at right now. Where are you at in your reflection of those reasonable parameters? So maybe we can have a draft of it. Yes, absolutely. As initiator, the scenarios and reasonable parameters, it could be a breach for storm breach, which could bring a temporary breakage on Road 199. And those would be in case of extreme climatic events, for which we could implement an emergency measure plan to, for example, have access to the site by another means than the road, and to make sure to have emergency safety system for exploitation that takes into account a temporary impossibility to use the road. So if this model or this discussion with the ministry, does that involve as well the Ministry of Transport, or are you discussing this parallelly with the Transport Ministry? We consider that we should include the Ministry of Transport. Perfect. Thank you. We have a second question. You explained yesterday technical adaptations or engineering adaptation that you must implement or that you think of implementing to protect your structures, especially the foundations of the white pails that are just in front of the foundation to protect from erosion. So my questions is for Mr. Caron and your team. Are you not too far away? I am here. Perfect. So the fact of installing those white blades in front of the foundation and to raise those foundation, for you, does that modify the coastal erosion dynamic, or that could that increase the coastal hazard in certain sectors? Actually, if you can allow me, Madame Commissaire, I'm going to let my colleague Charles answer that answer, because he prepared an answer to this question. So Mr. Charles is probably reading my mind. Mr. Bellin, go ahead. So hi, Madame Paul. Charles Bellin, I'm Ministry of Public Safety. So that's actually subject. We were expecting to be asked that question. So that corresponds to the modification of Mr. Bellin. You should actually slow down a little bit, because I know the subject is really dear to your heart, but you have to slow down in your flow, please. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to start over actually, so I could actually be just. Just to clarify the term, this is an effect corresponding to a localized modification of sediment transport, which could be found in proximity or at the extremity of protection work. So this site of energy that's actually bringing normally literal transit perturbation, and sediments generating erosion can be accentuated, but locally. The area that is planned of wind turbine implementation is outside, as mentioned yesterday, of those safety margins. And associated with those coastal reasons that are governmental, and the image of safety of the municipality is applied to this site. So with the model performed by the firm, probably low heights of water tied to flooding, the coastal flooding that could actually reach the foot of the structure. So throughout the years, that would add actually that the water providing that would actually come from the model, that could actually limit the risk of erosion inducted by the mechanism. So thank you very much. That was actually very clear. So I'm just going to do a side note with Hydro-Québec, Mr. Scully, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Hydro-Québec produced numerous video in the optic or in the lens of the energy transition of autonomous network. And if I remember correctly, I heard that it was a question of burying the line on the long of the road 199. Is it exact? Is it correct? And if it's the case, does this this burying brings technical difficulties or difficulties to the timetable pertaining to your work. So, yes, the announced project of line convention 7 and 8 would be cables that would be under the ground, and those are maybe the challenge, but we are still in this study period of on the analysis of engineering, so we're too early. So, Monsieur Leblanc, so the report from La Salle recommended to do the exercise of a model on erosion and flooding throughout the life cycle of the project. Could you naturally find the prediction that you made at the time in 2026? Eventually, you could allow to adapt against those phenomenon that could actually come in the future. Do you have? Is it planned? This possibility? Is it a recommendation? Do you have the intention to redo the exercise? Do you find it interesting to do so? And I would complete my affirmation by your annual tracking of that coastal line. We talked about it yesterday. It's an annual tracking. So we have is there a vision clear year after year to see the evolution of that coastal line, and maybe is there a distance to which you're gonna start to think about supplementary work between your installation? So Jean-Michel Leblanc, maybe the spokesperson for the initiator, could actually and we are really open to recommendation of Mr. Guillemette, and there's a tracking, a follow-up of on the erosion project ongoing. And maybe I can give the microphone to Mr. Guillemette. He could actually give us more precision on the margins of withdrawal that could actually start a recommendation to start a new study. So yeah, Mr. Guillemette. So hi, Madame Paul, Madame Lénie, Nicole, Mr. Guillemette. Mr. Guillemette, I'm sorry, you're gonna need to close your camera. Unfortunately, we can't hear you. The sound is cutting. Hi, everyone. Madame Paul, Madame Lénie, Nicolas Guillemette. I am a coastal engineer. So everything pertaining to erosion and flooding, I was actually present to inform you and the audience. I was there Tuesday for the first session, and I caught up on the different discussions on the subject on last night's session for your information. So I would like to put on screen the short clip here, or the map here, that we actually can give you to put to your disposition. That could be made available for you, so that's good. Perfect, it's done. Would it be possible to go on the other map, the simplified one that we have? As you know, we performed a study in 2024 that allowed to appreciate the erosion risk. Sorry, the sound is cutting again. Mr. I'm sorry, inaudible. Mr. Guillemette, we have technical problems about your sound, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I don't have a solution to offer you, unfortunately, so maybe we could go take back the conversation and maybe let the management technical side actually to improve maybe the situation, because it's really important that we understand your explication, because discussion is really cutting a lot, unfortunately. So we're going to go towards a citizen that wrote himself on the register, and we're going to try to come back to you a little bit after. Thank you very much. So we're going to go on the phone with Jean-Paul Roy.
Monsieur Roy, est-ce que vous êtes là?
Mr. Roy, are you there? Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you well. So we are hearing you well as well. So we are listening to your first question.
Je suis un des nombreux propriétaires fonciers.
Since I'm one of the numerous landowner, I think there's maybe an interference. No, there's no interference. We are listening to you. No, it's on my end. I have an interference. I changed phones. I'm just going to lower the sound of the computer. Since I'm one of the numerous landowner and equity funds and the windmill project of Régie, I am concerned of the Grosse-Île project, even if I'm not residing in Magdalene Island. Thank you to Mr. Deschênes for his answer today to my question from last night. And the amounts are only for the Grosse-Île project. Can you hear me well? Yes. Yes, we can hear you. Yes, yes, absolutely. During a land sale, the court agent is submitted to their ethic code, and he has the obligation to inform all parts of any factors of which he is in the know that could affect unfavorably the transaction. And the elected of the Alliance of the Est, their seller, do they have the legal obligation to declare to the buyer the possible reality as followed? The presence of one or many wind turbines of great dimension between 1 to 3 kilometers on the property that is going to be sold. That's an example of level distance. The monetary value of the sale, the property that's on sale, is going to take the entirety of the loan reglementation and the cumulative equity funds of the total sum. So the windmill projects of the Régie and the Alliance S, that's my first question actually. So I'm going to go towards Mr. Leblanc that could maybe give the question to Mr. Deschênes. So I would simply make a note here that we're starting to be really further from the mandate of the Alliance of l'Est. And maybe Mr. Deschênes has a few information elements to inform us actually pertaining to this question, the obligation to declare certain elements tied to the presence of éolien windmill parks and certain elements, funding elements as well. So, Madam Chair, I don't necessarily have an opinion. I think that the question that I'm hearing the most is towards maybe the court agent, the agent, the seller. And for his ethic code, maybe he's going to have some declaration to do, but put aside the windmill project, I would say the intermunicipality Régie. I think on your declaration of a seller or a buyer from a court agent, I think you need to actually ask an expert in housing. Mr. Deschênes, we're going to go with your second question, Mr. Roy. So on the territory of Alliance de l'Est, for example, Bas-Saint-Laurent, how can you explicitly, or a seller, could actually, a real estate broker, how can he know quickly the monetary total of the value of the property that is on sale will be endorsed to inform the buyer, to inform well the buyer. Mr. Leblanc? Madame Paul, since our partner from Alliance de l'Est remarked, the loan rate potential tied to the municipal borrowing was calculated by the Alliance S on 66 cents on $100. So the project that is taking place here, the park Grosse-Île, we are noticing here, actually Mr. Roy is actually interrogating on how to get the information. It's not really the value or the amount, it's really how you can know the information. So is this information public in a way or another? I'm gonna give actually the microphone or give the floor actually to Madame Bosse, to Monsieur Simon Duchesne actually, so maybe you can give information on how the borrowing ruling from the municipality is made public or not. Mr. Deschamps. Madame la Présidente, effectively. So, with all respect, when someone actually is buying property, I'm actually a mayor of a small city in Gaspésie. So, putting apart the Alliance and the windmill projects, it is the responsibility of the buyer and the seller to give all relevant information. So if there's a zone area ruling change, that's actually it's actually on the websites, etc., etc. So, but that being said, if we're going back on the question of Mr. Roy, or your question, Madame Présidente.
I think it's up to us, to our own board, intermunicipal board, and also Gaspésie, Montmagny, the islands. It's all publicly done. Our borrowing regulations are done in each territory for the MRC. Its resolution, it's supported by the municipal affairs. The citizen has access to all the information. So in this context, I believe that the information is available for an eventual real estate transaction operation. So thank you, Mr. Roy, for your second question. Now we will try to talk to your expert, Mr. Guillemette. Mr. Guillemette, I hope that this time it's going to work. No. Yep. We'll start again. Very well. Good afternoon, Madam the Chair. Can you hear me well? For the moment, yes. Very well. It would be possible to put the caps, the video, the image of the slides. So now, from the beginning, I want to say that's what I was able to follow from this session from the 10th and from yesterday. Concerning the erosion, the segment about erosion submersion, we did a study in 2024, which is part of the impact study, which was public. It's Annex G. So we were able to appreciate the risk for two horizons on the screen, 2050 and 2060, which was requested by the initiator. And after that, we did two scenarios. Why two scenarios? Because when we project for the future, it was mentioned. Oh, on n'entend pas très bien. This is not always exact science. We have an envelope of uncertainty, of possibilities. So what we can see here on the image by those four curves. Also have to mention that it's been also discussed yesterday in the two scenarios, the moderate scenario as with the high scenario, we took into account the GHG emission, SCP 8.5. The difference between the scenarios is regarding the highest scenario, which is more pessimistic, more conservative. This one is based on the erosion rate, which are the followed band, which is followed by Quebec University and Rimouski, which allow us to appreciate the maximum rates. So there's a difference within that level to establish the scenario, we wanted scenario and highest scenarios. After that, quick to understand is about the result, interpreting this chart. What we could see is based on our analysis at the erosion hazards and also the lagoons in the Gulf, in brackets, the level of energy, the level of erosion is higher at the side of the Gulf and the side of the lagoons, because the energy of the wave is higher, it's more important. So the conclusion we can have is that in short term, for horizon 5 to 10 years, we have a safety margin which are sufficient. When I say safety measures, is the distance that separates the littoral, with the actual climate from the production of the foundation of the wind turbine, which looks at the polygon in gray, the gray polygon. So the moment we project and we go into future climate, and then we get closer for the horizon 2015, 2060, we will understand that as the erosion does not take any break, the risk will increase progressively in the future, and we will see that those margins, safety margins, will diminish progressively in order to reach, as you could see, values that are around 20 to 30 meter foot horizon 2060 for a moderate scenario, and also safety measures that are null for the same horizon for a high scenario. So then what I said is there also uncertainty to know which of those scenarios will happen. Those are potential scenarios, and in which year it's going to happen. However, there's always a risk in future climate when we get closer to the projected horizon. So if you allow me, I would do the reading of quickly of our conclusion of the report, which I believe is shared interest. So it's read like we judge that the risk of erosion in future climate seems high and significant. It will take into account for the implementation of the wind farm in the two sectors that are projected. At that time, there were two sectors, Sussex and 1.5, and those, no matter the horizon which is retained, we agree that a formal commitment of different local actors and provincial and other stakeholders to the project are required for this research of a intervention solution, which reach to a protection of the littoral as for the Gulf and the lagoon side, including all the maintenance and effort associated during the duration of the project in order to mitigate the risk at an acceptable level. So briefly, what we say to this conclusion for the future climate is that this statu quo is not acceptable. We have to understand that very well. We have to act to that subject. We have 4 mitigation measures which are taken over the last 2 days of hearings. The first one to mitigate this risk, of course, is to put into place as soon as possible an annual follow-up program for the morphologic regarding to allow the GPS, drone, and photography to be able to document the evolution of the coast to the site to study, and that's the side of the Gulf or the lagoon, and to obtain the lagoon, and also to obtain some more specific data, more probing data. As we said, also reuse those data to update the modernization work. We are in a science, project in the future, there's always some uncertainty. It's the one way to mitigate this uncertainty. It's to have data that are updated in a continually, which allows to update our modeling, and also that these modeling are shared with the different actors of the location area. So it allows to make the decision for the future at the level of the project. The other information, I think it's important to reiterate, is the fact that we have some time. Right now, as I said, on short term, there's no notice, there's no high risk, and even at the passage of a major storm like Fiona, to storm, the safety margin we have plenty of time, so we will not get in a context, a situation where we have to do some emergency work. So we have time to plan what follows. So we have this first mitigation measure at the level of the follow-up. And the second measure, which was called for, is to have to adapt the foundation for the wind turbine. We talk about the walls, sheet piling, and then is to undertake now discussion with the different type of different actors of the area to look at the feasibility and engineering feasibility and social environment into what it consists, and to proceed to stabilization of the shore. It's according to us, it's important. So we have to commitment in this sense to ensure that the risk is lower in the future. So all of this those are initiating the commitment the initiative took. It's ongoing, and it's one precision to add on the three mitigation measures that I just named. We don't talk about one or the other. We talked about and the other. So those three aspects on which we have to work in parallel, not alone, individually, which will allow to mitigate that risk. And then as we get more probing data over the years, we have time to reflect and consult the environment. It's time to put these benefits of these issues, and then look at the risk and see, so could be able to make decision regarding the assets on long term in a risky zone. So it comes to say that it's a risk management that we have to discuss, but different actors of the area regarding that topic. Thank you, Mr. Guillemette. Thank you for the presentation. I have a last question, Mr. Leblanc, regarding erosion, submersion. It's more about biological questions. Those safeguards, is it increasing against erosion? Does it come to that's going to have some change in terms of the impact of which we presented, for example, on the landscape, the area of the access, wetland overlapping, where, for example, what can affect for the broom courberries? No, according to our knowledge, no, everything about the foundation and the road access has no impact. I would have to specify, however, that yesterday I mentioned that the sheet piling did not go above the soil. That's something we noticed, but in optimizing, we indicated that in our technical team, there were some options where the sheet piling could come out of the ground up to 1 meter. So it's the impact which could happen on the site, but according to us, there shouldn't be any biological impact regarding foundation. And in terms of the working site, the access or the right of way or these sheet piling, no, not it's going to affect the environment. No, not according to us. I have one more question. It's not a question. It's more like a request regarding the sheet piling. Maybe you could provide us a topography design from the sea going by the dune and to locate the foundation where they are, to provide a good image, because now we have charts which with some hills, dunes, so it will be very useful for us. Of course, Madame Paul, we will produce the requested image. The moment to reflect, if we had this image, which was really pretty. I'm going to ask you to look into it and then present it in due time. The commission is going to take a break, a 15-minute break, and then we'll take again in 50 later on. For the moment, we have two stakeholders. We have question on our side on the economic benefits, the relation with the environment, and also the birds.
Vous avez certainement entendu parler du BAP, mais savez-vous vraiment ce qu'il est et ce qu'il peut faire pour vous? Le BAP a été créé en 1978 pour que le ministre responsable de l'Environnement puisse conseiller adéquatement le gouvernement lorsque celui-ci doit prendre une décision sur un projet majeur. Lorsque le BAP remet son rapport, les enjeux sensibles du projet ont été analysés. Et tout le monde y gagne. Les citoyens ont eu l'occasion de bien comprendre le projet et ses enjeux, d'obtenir des réponses fiables et de faire connaître leurs préoccupations. Les experts ont répondu aux questions posées. Ils ont mis en lumière les impacts du projet et les façons possibles de les aborder. L'initiateur peut bonifier son projet, au besoin, pour qu'il soit profitable pour tous et acceptable pour la collectivité. Le gouvernement connaît l'intérêt ainsi que les attentes de la collectivité envers le projet. Participer aux travaux du BAP, c'est faire progresser la société. Avec le BAP, vous obtenez l'heure juste sur les projets qui peuvent avoir un impact sur votre collectivité. Les consultations publiques et les rapports du BAP vous permettent de tout savoir de façon précise et transparente. Contrairement à ce que plusieurs pensent, le BAP ne prend pas de décision sur un projet. Il avise le ministre responsable de l'Environnement afin d'éclairer la prise de décision gouvernementale. Dans son rapport, le BAP dresse un portrait fiable, basé sur des faits, sur la science et sur les réalités locales. Citoyens, organismes, initiateurs, décideurs, c'est tout le Québec qui en profite. Lorsque le BAP analyse un projet, il le fait sous tous les angles nécessaires pour donner un avis éclairé au gouvernement. Au BAP, on fait le point sur différents aspects d'un projet. Est-il conforme avec le développement durable et le respect de l'environnement? Correspond-il aux valeurs de votre communauté? Quels sont ses avantages et ses inconvénients sur le plan économique? Ainsi, dans son rapport, le BAP tient compte globalement des enjeux écologiques, sociaux, économiques, scientifiques et technologiques. Le BAP fournit alors un meilleur éclairage, ce qui permet au gouvernement de prendre une décision bénéfique pour le Québec de demain. Le BAP est l'une des rares institutions qui permet aux citoyens de participer directement à définir leur avenir. Au Québec, nous avons toutes les raisons d'être fiers de notre BAP. Découvrez ce qu'il fait pour vous au www.bap.gouv.qc.ca. Vous avez certainement entendu parler de la tenue d'un BAP lorsque le gouvernement doit autoriser un projet au Québec. Mais savez-vous vraiment comment tout cela fonctionne? Au Québec, tout projet d'envergure présentant un risque environnemental élevé doit obtenir une autorisation du gouvernement basée sur la recommandation du ministre responsable de l'Environnement.
Oui, je t'ai entendu.
Le projet est alors soumis à la procédure d'évaluation et d'examen des impacts sur l'environnement qui est encadrée par la loi sur la qualité de l'environnement. C'est au cours de ce processus qu'aura lieu l'intervention du BAP. Le ministère et le BAP jouent chacun un rôle bien précis pour évaluer le projet à l'étude et pour assurer la participation du public à la prise de décision. Le but ultime est de concilier les enjeux environnementaux, sociaux et économiques. Le ministère encadre la procédure et coordonne l'ensemble des analyses techniques et scientifiques jugées nécessaires. Il travaille en collaboration avec les experts des ministères et organismes concernés. Il s'assure également que l'ensemble des documents qu'il a reçus ou qu'il a produits dans le cadre de la procédure soient facilement accessibles au public. À cette fin, le ministère a créé le registre des évaluations environnementales que toute personne intéressée peut consulter. Au cours du processus d'évaluation, le BAP informe la population et réalise les mandats de consultation publique qui lui sont confiés par le ministre. Le BAP est totalement indépendant dans son fonctionnement. Il permet à toute personne intéressée de s'exprimer et d'obtenir l'heure juste sur les projets qui lui sont soumis. De plus, les commissaires responsables des consultations disposent du pouvoir de questionner quiconque peut les informer sur un aspect spécifique. Ils peuvent aussi exiger le dépôt de documents nécessaires à l'analyse d'un projet. Grâce au BAP, l'initiateur du projet, les experts, les organismes et les citoyens contribuent chacun à leur manière à dresser un portrait fiable basé sur des faits, sur la science et sur les préoccupations de la population. La procédure réalisée par le ministère constitue un processus complet et rigoureux. Les spécialistes qui y participent peuvent être engagés par l'initiateur du projet ou être des employés du gouvernement. Dans tous les cas, ils sont régis par leur code de déontologie professionnelle. Quant au BAP, c'est un organisme indépendant qui sert toujours l'intérêt public et non celui de certaines personnes ou de certains groupes. Sa compétence, son impartialité et sa transparence sont reconnues. Voici comment se déroule la procédure. Dans un premier temps, l'initiateur d'un projet à risque environnemental élevé avise le ministre de son intention. Celui-ci diffuse alors une directive qui détermine le contenu de l'étude d'impact et de toute autre démarche de conformité environnementale que doit effectuer l'initiateur du projet. Tout au long de la procédure, le ministère a la responsabilité de consulter les communautés autochtones susceptibles d'être affectées par le projet. Le ministère prend en compte les préoccupations liées à leurs droits dans le cadre de l'analyse d'un projet. Dès le départ, le ministère consulte le public sur les enjeux que l'étude d'impact devrait aborder. L'initiateur réalise son étude d'impact conformément à la directive du ministre. Cette démarche scientifique vise avant tout à évaluer les impacts du projet sur l'environnement et à déterminer les enjeux qui y sont liés. Cela inclut de manière indissociable les dimensions écologiques, sociales et économiques. Lorsque l'étude est achevée, les spécialistes du ministère la vérifient en collaboration avec les ministères et organismes concernés. Ils s'assurent que les exigences de la directive ont été respectées et que les enjeux soulevés par le public ont bien été pris en compte. Au besoin, le ministère peut demander à l'initiateur qu'il apporte des précisions ou des compléments.
Grosse-Île. Yes, so yes, I'm Jean-Michel Leblin. I am the spokesperson for the initiator, and yes, Madame la Commissaire, the committee is going to act like it's acting already as a liaison since the onset of the project of Grosse-Île. Can you tell us in which way the reports are disseminated from the part of the liaison committee, and how can you make sure that the committee is informed of all discussions that are taking place within the liaison committee and the recommendations that are made or opinions that are emitted? How can you make sure that it is known within the community? So, Jean-Michel Leblanc for the initiator, Madame Commissary. Right now, for the reports of the meeting of the liaison committee for the Grosse-Île windmill farm project are put on the site of the. There's actually a website of the park with an hyperlink that brings you with the section of the park of Dunes du Nord. So it's going to be the same members of the committee. It's the same committee. So those meetings and reports are revised in the next meeting. So the initiator is aware that there's an important delay, and that's actually a challenge that we could discuss with the liaison committee to review the process or to have one that's quicker for diffusing the reports. We are very open on that question for better means to disseminate the information of the reports and preoccupation and suggestions that are brought up by the members of the liaison committee. For example, we could do it towards the Facebook pages of our projects to contact the community. So what I'm understanding is you're going to try to improve the efficiency of the division of accounts and reports. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. The Commission would also like to know if you implemented or think about implementing a mechanism of complaint management. If a citizen, for example, would wish to emit a complaint during the construction work or exploitation, is there a mechanism or a place where a citizen can actually complain and deposit one? Yes, I'm going to maybe give the floor then to, that's actually Mr. Leblanc for the initiator. So, Madame Commissaire, Commissary, we right now have a section of contact to send a message. So the management team of the windmill farm of Dunes du Nord and Grosse-Île, those two sites have a website and is used for suggestion, contact, and complaints. And we are reflecting of implementation of an official process, a more structured one, to make sure that the citizens know that we are open to receive those complaints if need be, and there's a clear process so the citizen can actually be at ease as well. Once those complaints are there, and I want to underline it, that with the 5 years of operation of the
Il y a certaines situations, certaines suggestions qui ont été adressées.
Contact by email as well, and we received no complaint so far. So certain suggestions were addressed, maybe at the liaison committee, for example, implementing interpretation hours and pertaining to the discussion of leaving or not available access to public lands. So concretely, actually not to close access to the roads towards the windmills or wind turbines. So instead of putting information that could actually endanger on the dangers, actually in the terms of ice fall or formal complaint from the citizen within the 5 years of operation. So just a small precision, Mr. Leblanc. is for the mechanism of management of those complaints. You said you were open to establish one. Are you taking the engagement to do so? Yes, Madame Nepal. I'm taking the engagement as an initiator to implement a formal process to management of complaint. So you're going to communicate that too. Yes. So, Mr. Richard, maybe we can provide a more complete response to what we did to Madame Chevrier during your short presentation. You said you could bring more information on the design areas to greet those windmill projects on Magdalene Island. So I would let you go with your presentation. So thank you very much, Madame Chair. So David Richard, I'm actually the division chief of the territory and urban so yes, I have a short presentation, which is a history of public consultation tied with those windmill farm project and also energy strategy in its globalities. So to cut a little bit short, certain slides here concentrate more on the windmill project, and on the time frame here, you can see the number of years that we held consultation processes. And as I give precision at the Grosse-Île, we started the consultation, the public consultation with windmill energy, and we did a call for tender with Hydro-Québec in 2005, and we asked the population on the possibility if it was socially acceptable, if people were adhering to the windmill project. So over 100 participants came to this consultation process. We received 20 memoirs and a report of consultation. The main elements that came out during the consultation is we felt quickly a buy-in of the population. So we continued to reflect on that. The population wanted that the agglomeration of the island take the leadership in this file. We noted as well the importance of a global energy strategy on the territory, not just to concentrate on windmill or wind energy, but also all other alternative energy. So central fuel, we were aware that it's still main polluter, and we could develop maybe other alternatives that could be greener. And we would define as well the emplacement criteria to respect the landscape, the environment, and the life quality of the citizen in using the territory and the use of territory. That's what came out of those consultation processes. So even if we are inside of those rock we were a little bit further of habitation or in forest areas. We were just more on the we found other solutions, and the maritime communities needed to focalize on those scenarios. So outside of those inhabited lines, we had a process in 2010 that we modified. We revised the schematic and the affectation that we kept at that time in 2010. It was at the where there's already one wind turbine. So citizen asked a lot of questions on that subject. And on the Morondière agreement on Île-du-Havre, there's a house that's really close to the management of the residual matter, so that was actually still meeting the criteria. So water was enumerated in 2007, and we could see the habitation, the houses, and historically people knew that they had a habit to see a wind turbine, so infrastructures tied to in energy production. So you could also have an eventual landing a road. So in 2012, we decided to modify the schematics and to start another consultative process to modify the managing road and find new emplacement. And we identified other areas, and we talked about scenarios. We identified 4 alternative scenarios, one in Central Island and Seuss, and we found one on the Île Robert and a dispersed scenario. We had a sector on the side of the du Nord, and that you can see on the screen. The two scenarios are lower here. You see one just close to the road, and the other one is a little bit further down. One is actually in the private territory. We were in negotiation with different landowners, and we met with a few of them. On the other hand, there was a lot of environmental constraints. There was a flora habitat, a lot of humid environment. So that was really a big challenge to find areas where we could implement wind turbines. In our original regional plan, there was a lot of humid environment, and that would have been too complicated. There was many users equally in those sectors, and the eligibility for that they were using for hunting, for gathering. So the scenario didn't. We didn't keep that scenario. There's two scenarios as well that we kept, which had natural constraints. And we had one just two on the side actually of the road Coulon here, just facing the storm shelter. And it's really close to inhabited areas. So it was actually to the choice of people living there if the wind turbine would get implemented or not. So, and then you have the scenario on the Dune du Nord in 2012, and we didn't have any big contestation on the side of the population. On the maritime community side, it was adopted. We modified the schematic, and we created a new affectation of the north. So that's a summary of what I've just said. So I'm just going to go quickly on this. So we had a public consultation on the energy strategy. We tried to elaborate different scenarios, which would be alternative to fuel use. Many participants intervened, and they wrote memoirs on the subject as well. And more recently, we started public consultation to modify the development plan. And at that moment, there was a resolution that was adopted by the municipality of Grosse-Île and that asked the community to modify the plan to create a new affectation on the territory, windmill affectation. And there was a potential here of wind energy development. And we started a public consultation because some citizens manifested there was still a lot of interrogation, a lot of questions. And initially, it was in 2020, there was a project of 2 wind turbine in flora habitat. And if I want to remind everyone, it was the flora habitat that was outside, and now we were in public land completely, and we didn't have any provision to go on private land at that moment. So after many questions of citizens and a few exchanges with preliminary counsel by the Environment Ministry, it was virtually impossible to bring 2 wind turbine in the flora habitat. So we decided to put an end to the planification to that scenario anyway, because we want to protect the flora habitat. So now we have 2 affectation at this present time. One that is facing the Dune du Nord, and one just in front of the salt mine. And on the side of the lagoon, we talked about affectation, conservation, and the mining industry.
Le schéma a été accepté, ça a été accepté par le gouvernement, cette modification-là, et on en a profité à la demande des citoyens, donc de...
And we took advantage of that to announce to the citizens to adjust other affectation on the side of the municipality, of the islands, to retrue the Comorandière, and then we also reduced the affectation of the Dune du Nord because it was wider than the project itself. That way, by reducing the affectation to the implementation of the existing wind farm park, we eliminated the potential of enlarging of that park of that touristic habitat. So we decided to accept, to find a compromise. We at that point, you can see on the chart is the gray, pale gray that we see on the left on the map. There's two new locations for wind turbines. So this is what I talked about. And then finally, we start again other consultation, which are more important. So since 2007, the maritime community tried many steps for people to participate. People had the chance to pronounce themselves on several occasions. And you can see that we also started a survey, and the result is 91% of the people that participated agree with the development of the infrastructure of energy, renewable energy that are done locally. So it's about what the specifics of it. Thank you, Monsieur Richard. Your presentation brings us to a question regarding consultation, especially the last consultation of 2022 and 2023. We could see that when there were some meetings, there were about maybe 10 people who participated to these meetings. Maybe you can tell us what efforts you made to make sure that the citizens participate, especially if we talk about citizens of Grosse-Île. Of course, as I said at the beginning of the session, initially the demand came from the municipality of Grosse-Île. They adopted the resolution, asking us officially to start the step to modify the planning, the land use planning. So if the council asks us to do that, we have to act accordingly. And also the mayor or that would sit on the committee council, the maritime committee council of the islands of twice a month at the minimum. There are meetings between the elected municipality of the islands and also the elected people, director, general director of the municipality. There were quite often exchanges. So we tried to, not recently, we had a liaison committee. We asked the question, do you feel some contestation? No, it's going well. We rely on that on our side based on the consultation. Of course, at the level when we follow the law through urban planning, when we have to modify something, a zoning regulation or urban or a choice of land use or planning use. So we do consultation. So when we go to do some public notices, we use our media, we use our social media also. We have a Facebook page, we have a website for the municipality, and all our public notice come out there. We have a report that comes out once a month. We'll do some reports of these meetings in the Info Municipal. We share our public notices. We solicit our media, local media, radio and radar. So I think the efforts are there to solicitate, as people, I understand that Grosse-Île, there's an obstacle, there's a barrier. We talk about the language. Sometimes the exchange could be difficult, but we rely a lot on the elected people for the internal discussion, and that's how we go. Of course, it brings me to a question. Those public notices, are they bilingual? Is your site? No, our site is not, website is bilingual. It's mainly French. So those public notices are only in French. They're only in French. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Richard, for the presentation. Now we're going to go to a citizen who's on the phone, Mrs. Louise Morin.
Oui, bonjour, Madame Morin.
Hello, Mr. Morin. We can hear you. Hello, Ms. Louise Morin here to Énergie Québec. The question regarding transition, I understand well the project after 30 years, we go back to the beginning because the wind turbine will have to be dismantled. They compare the wind turbine to underground cables. So what's up, Mr. Leblanc? Mr. Leblanc, the life of the wind turbine regarding the blades, I think is the elements, the components of your turbine that weakens. How long would it last? Jean-Michel Leblanc, the speaker for the initiative. To answer your question, Madame Paul, Madame Morin, who was online, I would say, but in terms of the blades, of course, there's a preventative maintenance that's followed by the owner and also by the manufacturers. So what we look for during negotiations to different types of turbine builders is the long-term maintenance, which includes also the follow-up of the state of the blades and also their maintenance. But it's a component which, if in case of during the duration of the project, the duration of the project's life, it's a component which can be replaced in terms of the blades. For the life span of the project, we have a contract with Hydro-Québec of 30 years, and we seek to have a contract, a purchase contract of turbine, which will guarantee the life of our wind turbine for 30 years, which does not exclude accordance to the equipment, but also the evolution of the site, which we talked a lot of today. There could be an extension of the contract beyond the 30 years in accordance to the state of our equipment in the site. Thank you, Monsieur Leblanc. Mrs. Coulet, I know that yesterday we already talked about the underwater cable that Hydro-Québec completely stay away from that use. But if there was an underwater cable, would you tell us the lifespan, but the maintenance effort that would require, because you have some information on that, don't you? The information is general. An underwater cable, the way it was supposed to be, it could have been, it's a maximum of 40 years. That's despite the hazard, like the fishing and underwater, the bottom of the water, so that could reduce the duration of this equipment, or the lifespan of this equipment. That's the only information that I have. So it's about 40 years, the lifespan of an underwater cable. So which means that you have to replace it after 40 years, or it can be maintained by sections. Madam Chair, Quebec, to specify the best technology of an underwater cable is to have only one cable. That's confirmed by my expert, because that's the experience that Hydro-Québec has had here in Quebec, but also internationally. And I'm happy to know that it's only one only electrical wire of from point A to point B for the continuation of the service, and that lasts 40 years, usually. Thank you very much. Madame Morin, do you have a second question? Yes, we announced yesterday that with the wind turbines and the new thermal plant, 90% of the use of the island, which will be decarbonized. So I would like to know regarding that percentage, what percentage is due to the transfer of the heavy fuel oil from natural gas, and how is due to wind turbine? What will be the use? It will be decarbonized. So the wind turbine will be used for new residents, to electrify new residents, to power new residents, or to decarbonize commerces, restaurants. What kind of uses are going to be decarbonized? Monsieur Scully. Madame Chair, Madame Scully du Quebec. In fact, is the whole of the activities throughout the islands, Magdalene Islands, which will be touched by impact by this announcement. This use of energy is not only one category of this of institution, of commerce, of businesses. It's the whole of the population which is going to benefit. That's going to benefit of the positive aspect of decarbonization, because I understand the same in Quebec, because we're here in a autonomous environment where the current is distributed. It's who's using it at the end, of course. Thank you. Now, Madame Morin, would you start the beginning of your question? It's like the last part. Maybe you come back to the beginning, because I know you have called about the distinction between the production of GHG and natural gas. Maybe you could be more specific? Yes. We have invoked 90% of decarbonization by the fact of building of new thermal plant, the fact that to go from heavy fuel oil to natural gas, there will be less GHG, and also there are going to be a decarbonization, but because of the use of wind turbines. By the way, my answer has not been answered when I asked what will be the uses that will be decarbonized. So we're not giving me an answer at that level. We just say there will be decarbonization in bracket. But to come back to the question, what is the percentage of those 90% is the result of the transfer of the heavy fuel oil to natural gas, and what's the percentage in terms of because of the wind turbines? Mr. Scully, can you distinguish, make the difference? I will ask Mr. Stéphane Carriot to come closer to answer the questions. Hello, Madame la Présidente, Mr. Chair, Stéphane Carriot, Hydro-Québec. In fact, the share of renewable associated to the wind turbine combined with the other two projects, we talk about 35%. 35% of the 90%. Of the 100%. We have to understand it can vary from one year to the other. And of course, the 90% is the combination, of course, of the power plant and the portion renewable fuel and the wind farm. So you could do an equation: 90% minus 35 is the balance that we're going to look for in a round-up number with the combustible, the fuel, low carbon intensity. So there we have to understand that we are developing, during the projects. Of course, at this stage, there's a great uncertainty. We talked about 90%. It's clearly an intention. If we can go further, of course, we're going to do it. Though all those percentages can vary from a few percent based on the choice of the combustible, and it's also its parameters, but the order of height remains. Madame Morin, also I'd like to come back to the second part of your question. J'ai answered your question regarding the uses. Maybe because we did not understand what you wanted to say by uses. when we talk about decarbonization, it's quite different from to add electricity. It's not because we do provide electricity that we do decarbonization. To have decarbonization, we have to have the restaurants change their gas stove to electric stove range. So we have the house remove their gas heating to get electric heating. When we talk about usage, you have specifically what is going to be decarbonized? We want to add electricity. That electricity, this new electricity, is it going to be to new residences? Is it going to go to new industries? In this case, we're not in decarbonization. When we say that we want to decarbonize usage, we have to target a sector to say that we will electrify that sector, which in the past was using gas. My question, what sector? This electricity is going to be used to which use? To eliminate the gas. So what you want to know, basically, in which sector it will replace an electricity which at the moment consume a fossil fuel. Mrs. Scully, in parallel to the project of construction of the new power plant, I think you have a program which targets particular companies just that focus on continue to decarbonize their electric production here on the island. Hydro-Québec announced a program of energy efficiency. Energy as autonomous, which says autonomous energy network. Those are funds, that we provide to people for their heating to transfer to electricity. Those are measures to decarbonization. Your neighbor said it's not just still that. I'm going to ask Mr. Derriot to answer the questions. In fact, the program Heure, it's the new term acronym used, which came with the modulation of the program, which is already in place, which is PUA, energy efficiency use program. They use those autonomous network, which can counterintuitive for the people of the continent. In fact, what we have to understand, it's the country. We encourage here combustible heating. The reason for that is because a liter consume the combustible, the fuel by the client. Because of this program, avoids, in roundup numbers, about 2 liters at the power plant. So it's a way more efficient to heat houses rather than to heat with electricity. So it's the reverse that's happening here on the continent. We try to decarbonize by converting in the other direction, the autonomous network. And that's for the reason that we have a program which is more adapted. And I would add, if you allow me, we announce also additional measures. It's the most efficient clients in our context, which adhere to this program.
Now we know 60% of our residential clientele on site that are heating their houses with electricity. We are inciting them to migrate towards the Heure program. But for technical reasons, economical or other, desire to remain with electricity. There is also a program offered, subvention for thermal pumps, which is more generous and is offered on the integrated network. That's actually a pilot project, but this year, since fall 2025, the program was launched and it's ongoing right now. And to this program, this year, we will add another one to incentivize for the individual that would like to install some solar panel as well on the residential level. Perfect, Monsieur Thériault. Madame Morin, does that answer your question? Yes, thank you very much. I thank you very much, Madame Morin. Have a great rest of the evening. If you would like, we would actually tackle birds. Of course, I love birds. It's just a way to speak. Let's go back on a specific aspect of this element or impacts of this project is during the construction period. You repeated many times ago and you took engagement in all your documents saying that preparation work, required areas will be performed as much as possible, and I think it's important, outside of the nesting period. And it's actually a long period of the year. It's between April 15th and August 31st. And in Quebec, that's the same time as construction period. And to start, I would like to ask you to present actually your timetable in more detail for your construction. And we ask that you prepare that for us. So yes, it's going to be Shane Lebin for the initiator. And it's going to be my pleasure to present this calendar for you. And we're just going to show it on screen. It's going to be the calendar for the project. We are currently in the environment process, which is being done parallelly with the engineering process. It's actually preliminary and detailed engineering process. So this is one that we wish to complete, and by the end of summer 2026. And if everything is going well and the project is accepted, we are hoping we could have a ministerial decree by that time. And at this step, of course, it's a critical step for the project to obtain that decree. And after that, depending on the ministerial authorization, that could affect the calendar. So next, we're going to go to the step of the construction supply. So why we need a decree? The project needs to be accepted as soon as possible, and that's because it's the step of supplying of signature, official contracts of supplying the supply chain, particularly since a few years ago, the delay of supply chain are really important. So that's a critical step actually to have those supply as early as possible to avoid delay. And of course, at the end of the project, on the level of construction, we have a provision of the first step here, conditional, of course, that it's accepted on the environmental side. We are taking into account the first steps of preparation and hours of work on the roads on the spring of 2027, and that would be a first part that could be done just before the nesting period, and be able to complete the work at fall 2027 to be ready to receive the wind turbine on the territory in 2028, to complete their installation and everything that's the substation, the electric substation, transformator, and tying up to the Hydro-Québec network. So that means that spring should come early for you, I imagine. And I think you're seeing where I want to go with this. Depending of the timetable proposed, there's possibility that you could go outside and inside that nesting period. And let's not hide it, it's possible. You deposited also a surveillance program in which you presented a case where work is happening during that nesting period, and you presented measures that you thought of implementing, which is preventive essentially, and installation of So actually, so the installation on the ground to prevent actually the bird to actually come and nest there that year. Eventually, the research of active bird nest here by a well-known biologist, Madame Leclerc, I'm going to go towards you actually.
Gauthier, d'emblée, je vous
The
dirais de
Environment Ministry think those measures to implement to protect could be efficient, and this could be to avoid nesting that summer, and depending on the work.
Le pluvier souffleur,
So
donc
Madame Gauthier here, so that's targeting actually it's the law actually on the migrating birds. Actually, it's Canadian Service of the Fauna or Wildlife actually that did this expertise and a recommendation to this subject.
que par votre expérience, votre
The
expertise,
prevention measures, depending of your, is it your expertise? There's two great measures that a promoter could bring forward. Do you think that you've seen them applied elsewhere? Yes, we're using them in legal habitats, and we had many exchanges with the Canadian Services of Wildlife, especially research with Denis, which is an active research versus simply observation at distance. And there was preoccupation at that level. And there's a risk, actually, when we did active research to disturb some birds during nesting, especially the last documents of the Canadian Services of the Wildlife, and recommending to observe by distance, but not necessarily that's actually active research. So we will now talk about the death rate that you observed at Dune-du-Nord. You deposited results on impact studies. It's customary documents that we had in 2021. That's going to give us maybe a more clear portrait. Can you present it to us, please? Yes, Jean-Michel Leblanc, so a spokesperson for the initiators. So it's a pleasure to present the results. If you allow me, I will let Madame Castonguay answer that question and present the results. She's a biologist so Madame Castonguay of Pesca Environnement. In a first time, we would explain the results because this is a regular exercise we are doing in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada. And I want to make sure that the work was really followed with reports, and they weren't prepared and written because it's our role actually today to explain the results. So can we present the little vignette that we have for you? Yes, go ahead. While we have this little break, I want to make sure no prey birds were found during the exploitation of the exploitation in the north. There's no other bird of a particular status that was found during the death rate monitoring. Same thing with the bats, because when we're doing the monitoring of death rates we do the two groups at the same time. So we are monitoring the bats and also the prey birds. So the objective of the monitoring of death rates, it's a systematic research of corpses or carcasses at the foot of wind turbines in Quebec. This is actually realized since 2007, following up to the installation of the first windmill farm and the first call to tender by a BD Center. That was something that was that we are doing since a long time ago. The idea here is to identify the species that could be subjected to collision and also windmill that could contribute more to it. So after the analysis of the results, of course, there was an elaboration of a standardized protocols that allowed throughout time to improve the method. And you could assess here the best estimation in the method. Do you want me to go in detail? No, you can actually just talk about the results. So we have 4 parameters that will be taken into account. Firstly, the number of birds found. Second parameter, it would be the persistence of the carcass on the ground to be able to estimate when we visit the foot of the wind turbine, we are walking systematically on a certain surface area, which is that has a good visibility on the ground. That's actually my third parameter, the surface area that we will evaluate, and equally the quality of the observator, because it needs a lot of attention to take a day and walk at the foot of the windmill to search for birds or bats. To verify the efficiency of the observator, we will do blind tests. We will deposit some specimens that look like birds. We developed, of course, techniques to fabricate those specimen that could look strangely like our species that are present, and we don't mention it to the person, and we measure that way the efficiency of a said observator. So those are the 4 parameters that we take into account in the calculation for the estimation. At Dungenor, the final result, no bats were found at the foot of the wind turbine, and no bird that were found either. And that's something that we observe regularly in other windmill farm in Quebec, and no other bird with a precarious status actually were found. And following the exploitation on the 3 sites, we realized that actually those tested during 3 years, and the ministry asked for some supplement measures. In total, during the 3 follow-up year, we found 29 carcasses of birds at the foot of the wind turbine and no bats at all. So the cause of death were often associated with a collision. But for the windmill farm of Grosse-Île, we change the slide. Actually, we're not anymore at the Parc éolien no North. What was asked for the Grosse-Île is 3 monitoring years after for the 2 first years of the exploitation of the farm, and the year 13 and year 23 to do another follow-up to estimate the contribution of the windmill farm on the death rate of birds. Since it's really small farm with 4 wind turbines, 100% of wind turbines will be visited. That gives us really an assessment which is really clear and just and fair. And given that we're visiting 4 wind turbines, protocol needs a good monitoring. So on the math level, it's really interesting because we have great challenges. There's really little death, and we have assessment protocols, and we find a lot of zeros. So actually in the industry, people will want to work and implement a protocol that allows us to estimate more correctly a number of deaths. But you need to take into account there's a lot of zeros. So understand, as on the north, were 29 carcasses that were found on a period of 3 years. I don't want you to lose the fluidity of your presentation, but I want to go on the side of Ministry of the Environment, because you said in the industry we are reflecting to a math method to reach the estimation. And Madame Leclerc, I would like to know if you are participating to this reflection. If on the side of the Environment Ministry, if there's adjustment that are taken into account the protocol to take into account the reality of the death rate, even if it's not really elevated. So I'm going to go and take give the microphone to Danielle Gauthier. Yes, Madame Gauthier. Yes, actually, there's estimators that are mandatory to use in the calculation, and others that are suggested to the choice of promoters. And of course, there's specific formulas to treat the data with really low rate of detection of carcasses and the numbers of found carcasses. Are those suggestions take into account the species found, or that has nothing to do with it?
Les taux de mortalité sont calculés de la même manière.
Mortality rates are calculated the same way for the bats or birds of prey or just birds in general. I will let you continue, Madame Castonguay. When I make reference to the industry, I was referring to all the parties and interested parties to improve that method. Researchers in Quebec, international, the minister, department, provincial and federals, and all the consultant. We're trying to find a method that brings a better estimation. There we go. We talked about the implementation of a detector, a detection unit to better prevent fog, specifically here on the islands for the 2 turbines that will be installed in proximity of the habitat of the horn grape. Why those 2 species? Is it because of the grape? But there's a lot of fogs on the other sites. Exactly. If the request from Environment Canada is looking after the species in threatened species, for example, the horn grebe, since we were close, but not because, but the 2 wind turbines were close to their habitats. Thank you. I will continue. Maybe additional information that you asked yesterday. Where was that used? It was used in Spain, in an area which there was a lot of fog, and this technique has been put into place, implemented. In the world, many tests are done with radars, but it's specifically relevant where there's a lot of birds, because we can educate artificial intelligence because here the population of birds and bats are less abundant than the other regions of the world. So it would take a lot of time and energy and money to come to bring all that system in place. So the reason was to create the fog. Seems to be a interesting suggestion, innovating at a reasonable cost to have in order to have good result also. At the level of the results, for Dune du Nord, the follow-up were done in 2021, 23, 2024, where the number of carcasses, which were observed, bird carcasses, went from 7 one year to 14 the next year, and 8 in 2024, which gives an average of about 4.8 birds per wind turbine per year. When we do the calculation with the method here, here's a usual method. Because of the low number of wind turbine, we have only 2 wind turbines, because the surfaces that we were able to visit, because of low number of carcasses and the quality of the observer, it gives figures that are superior to what we can observe on the field. So when I talk, we have to continue to work to improve the method of estimation method. You have an example here. Moreover, you have to know that on those wind farms, people circulates almost every day. Technician, or we make them aware. We ask them to tell us all the carcasses they define. So it's mandatory to give them to the Department of Environment and to tell us what's going on. And we have very few sharing. So, Madame Gauthier, with those figures on your side, is there a certain reflection to try to improve the calculation? Because the number that is shared is 44.6 birds per wind turbine per year, which is still 10 times superior to what's been observed. Is there a certain reflection to try to better project this assessment? In fact, which the documentation tells us is that is not rely on the number of carcasses that are found on the field, on the ground, because we know that the rate of detection rate are very low and the mortality are underestimated. So what we rely on is the death mortality, the rate based on detection. So for us, what those figures, the high number, are more say more to us. So that's where this is where most of our concerns are. Thank you for clarifying. Madame Castonguay, continue. The elements on which we work to improve the estimation is basically to improve the quality of the observers. Its acuity to find carcasses, also to more frequently to reduce the uncertainties. In this present case, is to do 100% of the wind turbines to have a better estimate, and also to cover the whole surface, which is 100% accessible, in order to mitigate the margin of errors. Thank you very much. Does that put an end to your presentation? Yes. No, I've got another question that will be answered to talk to you about. I've been doing that for 20 years. I only have an anecdote to bring. When we left Grosse-Île Tuesday night at the level of two wind turbine, two foxes crossed. So in terms of prevention, you have everything that you need here, not far away. And I've got another question, which is more for the Ministry of the Environment. Based on the sites which will finally be retained for the implementation of those wind turbine, for the sector, we'd understand three grapes, if the one of the north, or two grapes. It's a question of which came up. I think it was the information period. Does that represent a risk which is higher for the aviary fauna, or is a corridor which could be represent a type of some sort of a wall, Madame Mater? I think I would pass to Madame Gauthier to answer the question. Well, of course, we have the geographic reality with the Magdalene Islands, so we understand it's a very small piece of land in the middle of the ocean. So lots of birds, a great diversity of birds occur on a small piece of land, and we have concerns in terms of the displacement of the piping plover, and also so it's increased mortality. Yes, we expect with the result. We have that. The reality is that the inventory before the project do not correspond to the mortality that's observed, because yes, the question with the abundance of birds, but how the habitat is being used by which species. So it's in the bottom is we're having an advantage to have data from other mortality, which demonstrate that effectively global mortality of birds is very high at the Magdalene Islands. Thank you very much. Well, I have one last question. Madame Gauthier, Madame Castonguay presented the method, the normalized standard method, which is used more often. We find out we knew many versions, but to know more about mortality, to verification, follow up the first 3 years, and then over 10 years, considering the fact that we have a presence of a species, of bird species, which is a proximity to those wind turbines. Do you think there will be modification or improvement that you would like to see, would like to bring to that follow-up program? It's not more the follow-up program that we would like to modify, but at this stage, the impact studies, what we assess to add wind turbine, but the horn grid, you modify the species. For us, it's a bad idea to bring two wind turbine where there is the horn grid, so and put other turbines in the other grape. So did we ask in our last exchange with the promoter? It was to see if they were they wanted to do some mitigation measures for the whole of the wind turbines. So what we talked about measures for what the horn grid is, but we don't talk about any mitigation elsewhere. So we compromised the establishment with the two wind turbines where the grid is, where the horn grid is located, and at the beginning to wait for follow-up for the other two wind turbines. So what benefits is the detection of the fog. It should be applied to all the wind turbines. Is that it? Yeah. And also to avoid the wind turbines near the habitat of the horn grid. Thank you, Madame Gauthier. Now we will go to, we just went all the questions on the birds. I would like to thank you all. Now we're going to go to a citizen who's on the phone, Madame Sylvie Leblanc. And I will shut the logbook or the register. Madame Leblanc, are you still there? Are you there? Yes, I'm here. So we are listening. Your first question, can you hear me? Can you hear well? But first question. Hello, Madame Paul, Madame Lenny. I think that the birds. Je m'excuse, je m'entends pas bien. For a project that it was talked about yesterday or the day before that, there's no equivalent on the planet. I feel that there are impacts that could be more, the potential to be more considered to according to me. Can you hear me well in the room? Yeah. Go ahead with your first question. I think that what the lady said, when at the middle of the St. Lawrence, Gulf of St. Lawrence, in an ecosystem which is rich in biodiversity, I worry for the marine environment, which is near from a lagoon. We know that lagoons, they're a very precious environment, essential for several activities. The salt, the growth, foliage. I've heard by the people that were saying that they were worrying regarding noise and vibrations caused by the work site and by the wind turbine. The noise and vibration, which are audible in all kinds of vibration. And I'm going to ask you how this doesn't seem to be considered the Magdalene Islands. The people talk to the turbidity, the photosynthesis, all kinds of distortion. What could be some potential issues that in terms of the lagoon and marine area. I want to make sure that people and promoters are sure that the turbines and the construction site would not have an impact on the lagoon environment, and also about life. Where some of the fish are there. There are already some difficulties. I don't know the status, but I'm worrying about that. I would like to know an opinion from the promoters. Monsieur Leblanc, we already talked a bit of that question earlier. your proximity, Madame Leblanc, from a lagoon area. There's a lot of marine species which make references to studies, which were produced in France on the links which were established with vibration and sounds and the impact in the marine environment. We'll go in two levels. Regarding construction, is there a possibility to reach the lagoon area? Based on the studies that we have done, that were made for the impact studies, no. You do not approach sufficiently water. You know, don't get too close to the water. There's no any human activities linked to the construction, which could cause some vibration emissions, which could spread towards the marine environment. Of course, we are still at least 60 meters from the hedges environment, as Mrs. Castonguay said, so it's 60 meters. So the current, there are studies in the world for the potential to an offshore link, but we understand the infrastructures are directly in the marine environment. So in this case, maybe there could be some impact, but in the case that concerns us, it does not have any impact at the marine level. And now, in turn, during the period of exploitation of operations, the same thing. Is it an element that you have looked into? Is it something? Do you have any documentation regarding that? Madame Castonguay will tell you about. She worked on this. She'll give you more information on it.
D'impact, la façon de le faire dans un premier temps.
The impact study, it was important, firstly, to establish a portrait of the environment and to establish the entirety of the activities that could be on site, actually. If there's no interaction between the component of the environment and the activities, in this case, the gist of the windmill farm of Grosse-Île, there's no interaction with the activities of construction or exploitation in a component of the marine life that is in proximity. So, Madame Castonguay, does that answer your question? My next question, actually, when there's the vibration, sorry, the cumulative effect of all those things, actually, what's the initiator is telling us it's not going towards the sea. So do not forget that we're going towards an aerial environment, towards aquatic environment, but there's a lot of travel. But I'm not a specialist in acoustics, but we can take into account that there's a barrier, there's a hurdle here, which is efficient. On the other hand, in the air, can you tell us what is the distance where the sound can actually reach in the air? Yes, actually, we do have an acoustic specialist here that could give us more information. Hi, Madame Castonguay, Marjolaine Castonguay, environment here. We have on the screen the map with the isophones. We're going to start with the outside of the map. Actually, everything on the map here in blue represent water. What is in green is a isophone from 30 to 40 decibels that could be perceived at the surface of water. And the second color, the green, which is a little towards yellow, it's between 35 to 39 decibels. And what you see in yellow is 40 decibels, which is also on the surface of water. The black line represents the form of the island. So when we are on water, you could actually perceive the sound contribution of the wind turbines that could vary between 50 and 30 decibels. And I want to make sure that the norm is 40 decibels for permanent house or housing complex. And that's the contribution of the wind turbine which the ambient sound could be perceived in the natural environment. Waves produce regularly between 60 and 70 decibels. For each colors, could you illustrate to what it corresponds as noise? For example, do you have the charter concerning the sound climate?
Je pense que je devrais être bonne pour vous le trouver. 40 décibels,
40 decibels corresponds to a discussion at a low voice in a library setting. Conversation that we are actually having right now is around 60 decibels, and a car sound could vary between 70 to 80 decibels if we are 15 miles away from the car. You have a graph here explaining everything. Yes, we have it on screen. Thank you very much. So, Madame Leblanc, thank you so much for your questions. I have another question. I'm sorry. We noticed that we are remaining in the audible with humankind, right? Yes, I understand that. Perfect. So, Mr. from the public health, is it ENRSPQ who is the reference in literature on those infraction? Yes. So, sorry, inaudible for the interpreter. We are pretending that there's no danger. I want to believe it, but I'm not certain about it. That's the only thing that I wanted to state on the record. Just wait, Madame Leblanc, just wait a little bit. We just want to go and see with Mr. Bonifier to see if there's a particular comment to what you just said. I'm not sure that I understood exactly. We lost you a little bit during the conversation. It wasn't really clear, unfortunately, the comment that you made. Could you repeat it, please? I've heard since a few years ago in France, problems started with infiltration. So Mr. Denis Vigé said the INRSPQ didn't have to give a scale or publication relevant to that. So I'm continuing to worry because the more we're going forward, the more the infraction are seen as a threat. So I'm noticing here a threat on the human level. And my question is on the larva life on the lagoon. Can the infraction constitute a potential impact on the larvae life of the lagoon, the ecosystem of the lagoon? So I feel it's a question that is really relevant. Mr. Boniger? So Yves Boniger. That's the infrasound. That's what we're talking about. In the literature of INSPQ, they didn't identify a lot of studies. So there was no conclusion or no sufficient data that it could have a conclusion on the effect of the health of human population. So I think there's a study that we'd send it to you. Maybe we are still tied to human health. Madam, she's talking about larva health in the lagoon. Unfortunately, that's beyond the skill of a public health specialist in preventive healthcare. So I think you would have to ask a biologist to ask this question. Unfortunately, we don't have that expert on hand here tonight. So maybe we'll go and ask your next question, please. Are you going to find someone that is capable to shed some light on this subject? The Commission will will try to find a resource. Oh, Mr. Morissette, someone from the M3S online, from the Social Services and Health Ministry, a colleague, Mr. Morissette, is online. Maybe he could shed some light on this subject. Mr. Morissette? Yes, Pierre-Olivier Morisset. So, Regional Direction of Public Health of Gaspésie and Îles-de-la-Madeleine, Magdalene Island. So, pertaining to the apparent lack of data on the infrasounds infrastructure and the small number of articles used in the literature revision done by the NSSPQ on infrasounds, that actually is a selection that was done by the NSPQ in function of the quality of publication in this domain. So we have to keep in mind that it's not because there are publication that is coming from different countries or different institutions that is sufficient quality or credibility sufficient to be used in systematic literature, scientific literature review. So there's a small number of judge publication that can be used. So even if it was selected with rigorous criteria, and the more recent literature date from 2023 and 2024. And in those articles, from which we had some data yesterday night, which dates from 2026, we still need to review it. So we are still open to receive them. Those publications are dating, so we can receive them and then analyze them following up the reception of those data. So thank you, Mr. Morissette and Madame Leclerc of the ministry. So Madame Gauthier, do you have anything else to add pertaining to the larva life infection and everything? So yes, on the phonic side, on the sound side, on the website and within the scientific literature reviewed by peers, there's still not a lot of studies yet. I went through I did a revision which is really large on publication, for example, on infrastructure on giraffes, elephants, reverberation in the ground, and albatross as well pertaining to the migration, but I didn't find any ties specifically between windmills or wind turbines and fauna or wildlife. So that's what the literature reviewed by the peers is bringing us as data. So it's not impossible. It's just that we don't have anything that incites us to develop the research on that level. So that's why the birds, for example, we do put accents on it to do the follow-ups, especially on the prey birds and bats, because we do have data on those problems. So thank you very much, Madame Gauthier, for your information. So to understand if there's no sufficient studies, we don't know if there is associated risk. So my second question is concerning funding. I would like to have maybe a horizon of the global cost of this. Well, what do you mean by horizon? So just the global cost of those patents. So I don't want to be precise, just like maybe a rough number around the 100,000. I would like to know the proportion of public subvention in the global cost of the project. So, Mr. Leblanc, even if it's possible, Madame Paul, that a subvention or a grant program could be found by the promoter in our funding model, there's no public subvention that is significant enough that could figure in the funds. So there's no public funds right now coming from a governmental source at any level that comes into the funding of this project. I just want to specify there could be maybe some light amount of tax credits for research and development, but it's not significative enough for in the funding model that we are taking upon for the funding of this project. So, of course, municipalities are investing. Yes, this project, Madame Leblanc, it's a partnership between Alliance de l'Est, which is a group of MRC and a private promoter, and we'll ask Mr. Deschênes if it's the case. Yes, the community participation part of the windmill farm of Grosse-Île is equity funds by the bias of loans framed by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and also governmental subventions, but it's really a capacity of borrowing from the municipal environment that is done in capital with our partners to bring this towards the windmill project. So it's not considered as private, but you have to understand it's not a subvention either that the Alliance is receiving and emitted in the project. It's a bank loan, almost like a mortgage. It's not qualified as a subvention or a grant from the government. It's the partners from Alliance S that are taking a financial risk by investing in the project, by borrowing. So is there warranties that are formulated by the municipalities? Just wait a little bit, Madame Leblanc. She's asking if there's some guarantees provided by the municipalities. There's not necessarily guarantees. The Alliance Énergie Est model, its strength, it's actually the notion of a portfolio. So it's a vehicle that we use to minimize the risk. And actually, the risk of investment right now in a windmill project is pretty much non-probable. So, Madame Leblanc, I think we went around the question. I think the answer is actually clear. So, I'm sorry. Could you say that again? Thank you, Madame Chair. I'm sorry about that. I didn't hear the question, unfortunately. Our investment portfolio in windmill farm projects is minimizing and attenuating all possible risk and potential. So that's our strength, actually, in this group of 209 municipalities. That brings our project with our participation towards this project. We do have guarantees, and we have to emit some credit letters and things like that. We also have insurance that we are paying. It's just that the risk is really minimal because we are in a portfolio strategy, which is making this risk very low or not probable. So that's the information complement of Mr. Deschênes. Did you hear him? Yes, I did hear him. I have so many more questions. Thank you so much to untangle everything for us all. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madame Leblanc. Have a great evening. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to call now Madame Lucie Damour. Madame Lucie Damour. So, hi again, Madame Chair, Madame Commissary. It's a small question tied to the study presented earlier on the death rate, the bird death rate, actually. I was asking myself if we could have more details, if it's concerning more aquatic birds, like a cormorant, for example, that are going through the lagoon towards the sea, for example, that would be in the sector. So you were asking about the carcasses that were found. Yes, can we have the detail about it a little bit? Do you have, Mr. Leblanc, the species list with the most occurrences, the most usual? So we have that list, and sorry. So to answer the question of Madame Damour, it's So it was the sparrows mainly. I'm sorry. My bird science is really far. So it's more like sparrow type birds. So parulines or warbler in English. So the list is provided in the list here is provided in the report.
Pour le moment, c'est ça qu'on sait.
That's what so I was wondering if there was some critical period because it's only in migration period of nesting period. Madame Castonguay, Monsieur Leblanc. I will pass the mic to Mrs. Castonguay. So if we have a copy of our computer rates of mortality. So we'll let you know, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. So, or we have it later on, or we have in written notice, so it's going to be presented on the site of the BAP. Thank you very much. Madame Lenné, the words, the mic to you. Maybe a few questions. The first one, I would like to address it to Monsieur Scully of Hydro-Québec. It's regarding the energy storage project. So the impact study, the initiator indicates that the wind farm of Grosse-Île will be complementary to the storage system, the electrical storage, power storage done by Hydro-Québec. The energy storage will become necessary because the additional project of wind turbine of Grosse-Île. I'll ask Mr. Stéphane to come and answer the question. Stéphane Thériault, Hydro-Québec. Mrs. Commissioner, of course, the storage system is linked to the project. We have to understand that's a system that would favor integration of the wind energy to the network. Would we have a project, a wind project without that storage system? The answer is yes, but of course not with the same benefits. This advantages, of course, isn't closely linked to the project itself. And what is the timeline to operate the system? Right now, the timeline we expect, we had a percent of use within in less time than what it was initiated. We expect that the operation will be in 2027. And if the wind project of Grosse-Île was not authorized, was not going forward, would you think that would be put into question about the storage of energy? Right now, the orientation is clearly to go forward. We already committed to, in the order, with our records and files. So there was a few things to finalize, but right now it's ongoing. Orientation is that yes, we'll go forward with the storage system, which could bring other advantages or benefits to the network. So right now, it's the plan to go forward with the storage system so that the project, whether or not. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thériault. Monsieur Leblanc, a few questions regarding the economic benefits. In the summary of the impact studies, you say that you collaborate with the environment to maximize the economic benefits and the competence, the workers and businesses of the community of the Magdalene Island will be prioritized during the construction of the wind farm. What mechanism, okay, for the improvisation, the supply that you think you're going to put in place to maximize all the economic benefits of locally? Michel Leblanc for the initiator, and the commissioner, Madam Commissioner. We have a commitment to favor the economic development that is locally, which materializes through the presence of economic factor with our liaison committee, with the CDC and commerces, which favored the business of the islands. We started to explore the Chamber of Commerce, the possibility to put into place or implement a process, the pre-authorization and pre-approbation for local business people, businesses, and have some information session with the Chamber of Commerce and also the member of the economic chambers to let them know about the possibilities that would be possible during the construction phase if the project can materialize. For us also to know the expertise that exists on the territory in terms of interests for the construction of the project. So do you think that the liaison committee will have an impact on this information? Maybe you could use the liaison committee to share the information or to meet local business people? Yes, that's information that we wish to share with our liaison committee. If you allow me, I would ask the l'Alliance de l'Est who could complete the interest regarding the economic benefits of the project. Thank you, Madame the Commissioner. Rapidly, it's a requirement of the Alliance de l'Est when we prepare, explore, create a project. And another project for us is the same. That's exactly that. The community participation is really a requirement that we impose with our partners. But we work together, and moreover, to benefit when we came here, the island, to have discussions with the liaison committee, the Chamber of Commerce, to prepare them to have a service phone book or logbook, so that we try to optimize for the economic benefits of the region. We close the period questions for this also and the first part of the public hearing.
Constatons que des informations complémentaires sont attendues.
Realize that some additional information will be there for. We hope that we'll receive those over the next 48 hours.
Additional information is required to answer questions. We expect to receive this information within the next 48 hours at the latest. Les questions que nous poserons
question that we ask, but we're going to write to people, the resource people, and also the answers and the new documents that we'll provide will be made public at the website of the BAP in French language. For the people who do not have any internet connection, the Bibliothèque Jean Lapierre or Jean Lapierre Library will provide them. Les questions vont
ministries and agencies, along with their responses and any new documents they provide, will be made public on the BAP website in French. For those who do not have internet access, the Jean Lapierre Library offers free internet access. Je vous rappelle que si vous désirez réserver une place,
if you wish to reserve a place in order to have a brief or express your opinion verbally in the second part, you have up to February 23rd to do so by filling out the form that is for this in the website of the BAP. J'aimerais vous
summarize a brief or express your opinion verbally in the second part. You have until February 23 to do so by filling out the form provided for this purpose on the BAP website. En deuxième partie, l'initiateur
the initiator and the resource people that wish to assist to the sessions are welcome. However, they will not intervene before the Commission.
The ministries and the agencies who wish to attend the sessions will be welcome. However, they will not longer speak before the Commission. Les séances à venir
the follow-up session will be specifically for the expression of viewpoints and to the concern and the repercussions. We have a maximum of 15 minutes to express yourself. Moreover, it's possible that my colleague, Sarah Lanim, and me will exchange with you to clarify some aspects of the opinions.
Will be devoted exclusively to expressing views on the project and its repercussions. You will have a maximum of 15 minutes to express your opinion. In addition, my colleague Stella Linné and I may have discussion with you to clarify and elaborate on certain aspects of your opinion. Vous pourrez également exprimer.
You will be able to express your opinions written by comments or by image from up to March 5th on the website of the BAP. To send, you have just to choose a form which is associated to privilege options.
Seront confidentielles jusqu'au moment de leur présentation devant la Commission.
The brief will be confidential to the Commission. The brief would not presented or the comments or images which are commented will be made public at the end of the second part. Vous pouvez également
brief, comment or annotated image by March 5th on the BAP website. Simply select the form associated with your preferred option. The briefs will remain confidential until they are presented to the Commission. Briefs that are not presented, comments, or annotated image will be made public at the end of the second part. Vous pouvez aussi trouver.
You can also find all the information necessary in the BAP website and access to all the advice and prepare your question for the decision you want which you participate. If you have any question how to participate, do not hesitate to go and see Rachel and Alexandre at the entrance of the room or write them at the address Grosse-Île @.ca.ca. Je m'excuse.
You can also find all the necessary information on the BAP website and access tips for preparing your opinion in the Participate section. If you have any questions about how to participate, feel free to ask Rachel and Alexandre at the entrance of the room or write to them at grosse-ile@bap.gouv.qc.ca. Je souhaite insister sur le fait que
I wish to insist that the reports on the BAP are based on the opinions presented by the citizens. Share your opinions can make our view on the projects and its issues.
Reports are based on opinions expressed by citizens. Therefore, sharing your point of view can change our overall perspective on the project and its challenges. En terminant, je remercie le porte-parole.
To end, I'd like to thank Jean-Michel Leblanc, the representative for the initiator, and also the ministry, department, and all the information was provided during this first part of public hearing. Great thanks for the people who asked questions, which allowed us to deepen our different phases of the project. At the end, thank you for the responsible people for the sound and the video caption and division of all the session, interpretation, and sort of tip type, and also the people, the inquiry commission. And my partner, I'd like to thank the person, Jean-Michel Leblanc, and the same, également les différents départements, les agences, pour tous les renseignements fournis pendant la première partie.
Also to everyone who has questions, which allowed us to explore different aspects of the project in greater depth. Finally, thank you to those responsible for the sound and video recording, the webcast of the sessions, the translation, and the stenography, as well as to the inquiry commission team and my colleague, Stella Linné. Alors, au plaisir de vous revoir les 10 et 11 mars prochains. Merci beaucoup. Et bonne soirée. Oui, moi je leur...